That's right. Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
And welcome to the show where we wax poetic about the movies we see on a month to month basis. It's time to crack open our
Movie
movie
Memoirs!
memoirs. The fuck you, it's January edition, everyone's favorite. All right, Dragon. But before we get into what I'm going to say right now was a pretty damn solid January as far as movies go. I was very happy with it. Let's get into the news. Not too many deaths this month, but of course a big one. We lost the great David Lynch. Now, Dragon, I know Lynch isn't really your thing. I have not explored him as much as I really should. I think the only ones I've seen of him are Eraserhead, Mulholland Drive, and I've technically seen Blue Velvet, but I got to admit I was very stoned when I saw that movie. Literally the only thing I remember about that movie is Dennis Hopper yelling, Heineken, fuck that shit, Pabst Blue Ribbon. That's like the only thing I remember about that movie. But what say you about David Lynch, Dragon? I mean, obviously he's a towering icon. He will be missed. It's just like I feel like he's kind of the king of like experimental filmmaking and also a very robust music career as well, which not a lot of people know about. What say you, Dragon?
Well, first off, are we happy with this color?
I mean, I just try. I not especially. I'm trying to kind of like match like what's kind of the color that's kind of appears on all four of them, and I feel like one of them days is kind of the outlier. But let's just go with it. Let's not nitpick. It's fine. It's fine.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, so David Lynch. I mean, I'm familiar with David Lynch, a little bit. It's, of course, man behind Twin Peaks, which changed the game for television. Without Twin Peaks, we don't really have. Honestly, we really don't get HBO without Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks was big.
Honestly, I would go as far as to say we don't really have like serialized television, generally speaking. Like as far as like outside of like soap operas, like
Well, that's what I mean.
Was, yeah.
Without Twin Peaks, we don't get The Sopranos. Without The Sopranos, we don't get Breaking Bad. And without, and so on and so on.
We certainly don't get stuff like Lost without Twin Peaks.
Well, yeah. So we of course, the man behind Twin Peaks, which also had an influence on Bates Motel. I'd like to think.
Sure.
Man, it was really a dismissive. Sure.
I'm sorry.
God. Anyway, so also did Eraserhead and
micro judging my tone, dude. I have a
absolutely.
Headache. I'm sorry.
God. Well, you know what?
I'm sorry that I'm not like super overly energetic tonight.
Yeah. I think we killed a little phone with Bates Motel. I don't think it's too much to ask.
All right, I'm sorry.
Go
ahead.
Anyway. Of course, it really changed the game with Eraserhead. Eraserhead was a big one. Elephant Man and Blue Velvet. I remember Cal McLaughlin, Blue Velvet. That was always an interesting one. But I think when I think of David Lynch, I always think of the self parody of the man in the Cleveland Show. Do you remember it all? Do you remember the Cleveland Show like at all?
I mean, yeah, I kind of vaguely know what you're talking about as far as the parody goes. Yeah.
So David Lynch voiced a character that was modeled after him. Essentially, it is David Lynch as a bartender, as Gus the bartender in the Cleveland Show, and it was really
David Lynch. He would just like pop up for weird cameos like that. Of course, obviously, the Fablemans was. I think it's really cool that he did the Fablemans before he passed away because I feel like kind of cemented his legacy in the film canon. I think.
Yeah, I think he essentially did it for a bag of Doritos.
Really? Oh God!
Well, remember he did it for like I think it was Doritos. It was like some basically that's pretty much what he wanted. Like he'd only do it if like there were like Doritos on the set. But that's the thing. So he like Gus the bartender was kind of a really fun, kind of like very Lynchian character. It was basically David Lynch poking fun at himself, and there's like there's one hilarious gag with him where. Cleveland, everyone likes Gus. It was just this thing of like, he just kind of bumps into Gus and he just has his internal thought like, man, I really like Gus. It'd be nice if Gus were my dad. And then we cut to this gag of like, basically, what if Cleveland's father was Gus the bartender and was adorable? So I mean, stuff like that was always like kind of like a fond memory of David Lynch. But you're right, though, the heck of a send off with the Fablemans. Him as
Mhm.
Glenn Ford, one of the iconic like original directors. Telling little Sammy Fableman about the importance of the horizons, and again, basically sending him off, into his future. It was such a beautiful moment. Just like the smile on his face at the end. It's
Right, right.
just again, David Lynch. He again, this it was a blow that we lost David Lynch. It's sort of very serendipitous that David Lynch passes right as like a different man comes out. Essentially, well, I mean, essentially, he's like out for everyone to see, and he's getting all the awards recognition and everything.
No, I mean, yeah, A Different Man, it really is one of those things where, like, it's been out for a while, but you're right. It's kind of like having a moment now. Like, I certainly had not heard of it before I mean, I heard of it a little bit before the Golden Globe nominations, but not, it's definitely having a moment. Anyways.
And apparently, I think he got to see that movie and he approved of it, from what I
Nice.
heard. So,
I mean, A
yeah.
Different Man, and then also The Substance as well, as far as like body horror and weird imagery. And like, I think The Substance actually has a lot of similarities with Mulholland Drive, as far as just kind of being a critique on the industry.
The point being, David Lynch leaned into the weird and really built an institution and gave people like the kind of the blank check to be ambitious. So
Mhm.
he's very integral to the fabric of Hollywood, and it's quite a loss.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so Code Geass is mentioning somebody that passed away shortly before January that's worth noting is John Irwin, He-Man's original voice actor from the He-Man and She-Ra cartoons. Yeah, I've never really watched He-Man, but that's definitely a shame. And Code Geass says he has some fond memories of hearing John Irwin's voice. So yeah, definitely another loss.
Mm-hmm.
You know what else is a loss, Dragon? I mean, Jesus fucking Christ.
Well, again, we're going from actual death, Tiki, so let's not milk it too hard. But
Neil
yeah.
Gaiman. No. I'm sorry, Dragon. Like, yeah, I know we're going from an actual death, but dude, like, I mean, you and I aren't that different in age, and like, I'm sure that when you were growing up, Neil Gaiman was just as big and just as beloved and just as much of like, almost like this kind of like folk hero of nerd culture. I mean,
Neil Gaiman essentially was the approachable Alan Moore, at least seemingly approachable Alan Moore.
Dude, give him more credit. Don't give him more credit than that. But I mean, give his reputation. Like, yeah, I mean, Alan.
I mean, basically, essentially that's what I'm saying. He wrote something that was as important and valid and just kind of like storied as Watchmen in the Sandman. This guy was very, and of course then the other stuff that he wrote. But I'm just saying in terms of like comicdom, like that's Neil Gaiman had a pedigree to him, so that was like on par with an Alan Moore. But again, no Alan Moore.
I'm just saying, like, just as far as like his reputation within nerd circles, dude. Like, this dude was like untouchable. I mean, the situation with Neil Gaiman, I honestly, Dragon, it's so heinous. I don't even want to get into it. I don't even want to know that. I don't even want to talk about the details. You all know the details. If you don't, I don't know what to tell. I don't want to say look it up because it's pretty fucking heinous, dude. It's like genuinely evil.
It was I guess let's just talk about without actually talking about the nitty gritty. I guess overall, mostly reacting to it. I guess overall, it's the fact that this is a situation that was kind of like it was kind of there were some murmurs about it, and then it's kind of snowballed into. I don't mean like snowballed in a false way. I mean it just got worse and worse as like more things came to light. And it's shocking. It's sad. It's just. I mean, I think back when it was like much more kind of murmurs, I was hoping against hopes. It was like an isolated he said she said thing.
Right.
It's looking bad, folks. At the very least, even
just
it
is bad, Dragon. Yeah. There's no looks about it at this point.
No. What I mean is, by this point, it's like, yeah, folks. It's looking pretty bad. I mean, I would love it if it wasn't the case, but it is very, very unlikely. You would need like the glove doesn't fit kind of a moment. And even then, it's the glove doesn't fit. So how much stock do we have on that? Regardless, the ripple effect on this is staggering because Neil Gaiman had a lot of projects in development. We kind of hinted at this a while back. So Good Omens, so the conclusion of Good Omens got trimmed down to basically one episode versus to essentially a movie or like an extended episode versus an entire season in part because of this.
And am I disappointed that we aren't getting a Sandman season 2?
No,
a little bit, but fuck him.
Tiki, we are getting a season 2. It's ending at season 2.
Okay. Okay.
So that word came down recently. So Sam, and to be fair, I think this is mostly spin. It sounds like they're saying that it only had so much of a shelf life. I think they wanted to make more seasons to tell the whole story. It seems like they were able to economize it down to 2 seasons. I don't know how true that is. I think that's them doing some spin there. But the point being, they're ending it at 2. It sounds like they're going to try and give it a definitive ending, but that'll be basically it for Sandman. So yeah. So we are going to see it, and again, that's because
Dragon, I mean, I'm just like the ripple effects that this is going to have, not just as far as like projects that are in development, but as far as like, again, I'm still just kind of shell shocked about it. Just as far as like, I was like in the thick of it with the fandom, and just like I've known many women friends over the years that like adored this man, like practically worshiped this man, and to have the stuff come out in this way, it's just sickening, man. It's literally like one of those things where it's one of those moments where it's like, I don't want to fucking hear or worship anybody ever again after something like this. I mean, it's really like,
it's basically, what if you take like a kind of a beloved literary figure, like in terms of authors.
We have that Steven Universe episode.
Yep. I know, that's the thing, Mr. Frowny.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. We just kind of take, we kind of take kind of like a lauded author of some kind, and then we, then it's like you hear these monstrous things, and it's like, oh God, it's like, it's kind of, I mean, it's kind of Cosby all over again. It's like, oh God.
It's kind of the nerd culture version of Cosby.
That's
exactly what it is. Yeah.
And that's the thing too, where again with Cosby, again, it's it's the whole the art from the artist kind of argument that you always have, where it's like, you know what, it's like at the same token, but one side you're disgusted and
horrified. It's going to be hard for me at this point. I'm not going to lie.
But that's what it is, Tiki. Again, it's like with Cosby, you have like these. Again, he's very integral and important to the medium that he came from. But again, then you have to kind of like factor in like, oh God, there's a lot of damage that's been caused, and it's like it's really really sullies everything. So unfortunately, we've sullied, we've kind of sullied everything. And these things, even if by some very infinitesimal chance that things aren't as bad as they seem, infinitesimal, I want to be very clear. It's like the man's career has been absolutely demolished. But like Dark Horse refused; they dropped him completely. They're not doing anything more with him. It's like that's like Neil Gaiman won't be able to do anything after this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have one more antidote for you, Dragon.
Anecdote.
Yesterday, believe it or not, you might be proud or horrified of this based on your stats. I actually attended my very first Comic-Con, and it was one of those, just the local Petaluma Comic-Con. And it was one of those things where, like, you know how they do like national park bus tours? I went on one of them when I was in Vegas, where I stopped by Bryce Canyon just for a couple hours. That's essentially what I did, but for a con, right? I went in for like an hour or two just to see what it was like. I actually got some really cool watercolor prints of some watercolor artwork of like the Brave Little Toaster and Stitch and Charmander and Charizard. Yeah, cool. I got them on my wall right now. It's awesome. But literally one of the first things I saw when I walked in was like a teenage girl dressed as Coraline. And my heart kind of sank because I'm just like, oh man, I just can't, it. And I'll just leave you with that, man. It's just like, it's just fucking this whole thing. It is just rocked nerd culture. That's all I can say.
Yeah, it's a tragedy. I'll say this much: it's a tragedy.
Yeah. Colby, yes, you did miss the Lynch in memoriam, but by all means, if you want to say something, I can shout out the comment if you are so inclined. Okay, so two major like bummers, but fortunately that's it as far as bad news. Let's get into some casting news. So DC casting, we have Ulrich Thompson as Sinestro. Dragon, I am not gonna lie, this guy looks like a pretty prolific Dutch actor. I literally don't think I've seen a single one of the movies he's been in when I looked up his IMDb.
Yeah, I'm unfamiliar with him too. I know a lot of people are jumping on James Gunn's case for like, why are you casting all old people?
Okay, that's kind of ageist, but whatever.
That's the thing. Seriously, everyone's really ageist. James Gunn does lean towards the kind of the senior citizenry, but it's not a bad thing though.
Yeah,
what I'm saying is everyone's always just jumping on James guns, thrown just about the whole, like, why casting like a 61-year-old guy as Sinestro, and however old Kyle Chandler is for Hal Jordan. What are you doing to us, James?
Watch your mouth about Kyle Chandler, man.
That's what that's what the people are saying.
I know.
So I make the point that, sometimes Hal Jordan, he's been a little up there anyway, so it actually fits really well. Plus, you want to differentiate from Ryan Reynolds' Green Lantern. That's definitely the way to do it.
Of course, yeah.
Now, more impressively, so even more undecisively, Jason Momoa playing Lobo in the Supergirl movie.
Which has been a rumor for a while, right?
Yeah, it sounds like, I'm pretty sure it's been this is full on confirmation that, because they said like it's going to be in Supergirl. So the thing circling like Momoa has wanted to play Lobo. A lot of people speculate he could play Lobo, so it sounds like we made it official. Like he's going.
I do think it's interesting that this is officially like, okay, like now we know for sure that people from the DCEU can now cross over into the DCU and play different characters. It's always like a weird thing. Like we've had that with Marvel too, with Marvel Netflix stuff,
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
Of course, he's solid. He's excellent casting for Lobo. Let's get that out of the way first and foremost. Momoa, he exudes Lobo.
I feel like he's like definitely. Obviously, him being cast as Aquaman was like unconventional casting. I feel like Lobo is kind of like the type of character that you would think of him as to begin with.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All
right. We have Odyssey casting. We got John Bernthal and John Leguizamo. One only can assume that Leguizamo is playing Odysseus, right? No, I'm kidding.
No. If
weird Odysseus.
I think Tom Holland's going to be playing Odysseus.
Oh, really? Okay. When I think Odysseus, I think like manly man, and I think that kind of suits Bernthal.
Well,
I thought that Bernthal would have been Odysseus. I don't know. I could be wrong though.
Well, no. Here's the thing. So apparently, there is a cast list, but this is only the recent casting that we know of. I think if I want to say both Tom Holland and Zendaya are supposed to be in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think. I saw like a cast list post. I don't know how it sounds pretty official. Like it's gonna be them, Charlize Theron. Like no one's pulling from all over for this one. I just don't know if again, we still don't fully know the details. If it's gonna be literally the Odyssey or something very inspired. It's gonna be a modern take on the Odyssey. I don't know. But yeah, we got a pair of Johns here. Just casting all the Johns in this movie. We got John Bernthal. We got John Leguizamo. Gonna have John Goodman. Just wait for it.
John Goodman would actually be an intriguing person to have in a Nolan movie. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, yeah. But it's a sad
surprised
cast.
John Goodman didn't get slotted into Oppenheimer somewhere.
But I think it's a solid, from what I've seen. Just if assuming it's to be believed, it's his cast that he's assembled so far. It's pretty top tier. It's a pretty solid bunch, and it's. Again, this movie's shaping up to be something interesting. I just do wonder if he's going to go full period or not with it.
I mean, I don't think he's going to go like Romeo plus Juliet with it, though.
I wonder if he's going to go like Oppenheimer being like the whole American Prometheus thing. That was like a literal. I know the book is called American Prometheus, but that's what I mean. Though essentially, it's kind of like the tale of Prometheus by proxy of like the Oppenheimer story. And I wonder if perhaps it'll be like somebody going on a journey that is very referential to the Odyssey, because that's the only way I see him doing it, not as like a full-on period piece, which I mean he hasn't really done that before, but he could, like doing something going all the way, going Greek mythology on us. He's never really, he's kind of circled Greek mythology. He's never really fully done it though.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing. It's kind of baffling everybody. Why wouldn't you just announce the movie's called The Odyssey if it wasn't just that? That's why I think maybe it was a little more.
Maybe because The Odyssey is just like kind of like a generic, like it's literally the oldest story ever written. So like maybe.
Well, you know what I mean. It's the fact that like something like has Odyssey or something or Odysseus's journey or whatever in the title. I don't know. It just feels like there's something he's keeping close to the vest on this one. I just don't know what it is yet.
We shall see. But I'm definitely intrigued.
Oh, also, I guess this was also recent. I didn't put in there. It was a very recent thing. Elliot Page also coming back for this movie.
Oh, okay.
It's been a while since he's worked with Mr. Page. So yeah.
Yeah. All right. I believe Inception was their only role,
Yeah, that's what
right?
I mean. So that's what I'm saying. He's bringing people again. No one likes to bring back recurring actors that he's worked with
Yeah.
along with new ones. So there you go.
Nice, nice. All right. Trailers, Dragon. I'm terribly sorry. I literally forgot to watch the Daredevil Born Again trailer. I'm
All right,
so sorry.
you're putting me on right now, right?
I'm not. I'm sorry, man.
Are you of all the trailers, really?
Okay, at least I did tell you specifically that I kind of wanted to, like, not be spoiled.
Yeah,
So
well, that's the
like
thing. You gave me. Okay, fine.
I'm just gonna stick to the not being spoiled thing. I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
sure.
man.
That's the reason. Yeah,
No,
just
it's not the
forget that.
reason. It's just that, like, if that makes you feel better.
Does make me feel better not knowing that you just completely forgot about it, though. Okay, look, fine. I'll take the lead on Born Again.
I was literally like watching In the Mood for Love up until we had to do this, and then I was like, "Fuck, I can't watch the trailer now."
Yeah.
Anyways, go ahead.
Anyway, so like, overall, the Daredevil Born Again trailer was officially released. Now, I mean, we already kind of saw this during the Comic Con stuff. So it's kind of not a lot of it's a big surprise, but seeing it without having to look through grainy like cell phone footage is
Sure,
appreciated.
sure.
I'm so happy it's back, and it feels like season 4 essentially. I am a little. There's one thing I'm curious about. I am There's a plot point in the trailer that it does feel like we're kind of going back to the well on something with Daredevil, and I really hope they have a good plan for this. It's that I'm a little curious about the whole he's hanging up. He seems like he's hanging up the horns. Uh, Considering we've done this in both Defenders and find you Defenders and Daredevil season 3 kind of blended together in terms of that plot line. So it's really just one example is him hanging up the cow, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we saw him in She-Hulk, with the costume on. So the impression I have is that something happened after She-Hulk before this.
Right, right, right.
But something happened recently that made him hang it up.
Now, I saw like a headline. Yeah, I don't know if you know anything
I
about
know
this.
you're about to bring up. I know.
Okay, like something about I didn't look into it, but something about Charlie Cox saying that like there's an explanation for like the in between stuff with She-Hulk.
Well, essentially, what they're going for is like they're playing a little fast and loose with, for example, they've pretty much confirmed She-Hulk won't really be in the Daredevil Born Again series, and that's mainly because they don't want to be beholden to like, okay, we got to address She-Hulk and how she might, again, she's already in California, he's in New York, we don't want to have to explain why she's going from point A to point B, and also it's kind of a tonal thing where it's a little bit more of a drama versus kind of like Daredevil being used in a fun kind of lighthearted comedic way. It's just the point being like they're saying it happened, but we're not going to drag her, really connect the dots in this show per se. But that does make me wonder though, they're saying it happened, we're just not going to like continue it.
Mm-hmm.
At least so far, like into like for it's not saying Daredevil couldn't show up again, like whatever. Not saying the two of them won't show up again, but it's just that we won't be addressing that in the show.
Mm-hmm.
It's a roundabout way of saying his appearances in the MCU have indeed happened, but we won't be able to acknowledge all of them. Like Spider-Man and She-Hulk won't be able to acknowledge it, but Spider-Man hopefully will seep in there somehow. But I think that we have to build. It feels like season 1 of Born Again is going to be purely narrative to Daredevil, and then season 2 is more going to have all the guest stars. That's what it sounds like and what it seems like so far.
I mean, I think that's kind of like Mandalorian-esque.
Yeah.
I think that's a good approach.
I think it's a good idea, and again, like a lot of people are expecting, you're gonna hear like as Born Again happens, especially with the whole week to week thing. Everyone's gonna say, "Where's Luke Cage? Where's Jessica Jones?" And it's like, guys, if Jessica Jones is gonna show up, it's gonna be like season 2 of Born Again.
Sure,
so just give it
sure.
time. It's already been approved for season 2. They had 18 episodes. They split in half. It's gonna be 9 episodes. So just, give it time. Anyway, yeah. So it looks really good. I'm really hyped about the diner scene between him and the Kingpin. Basically, the idea, just considering that Daredevil and the Kingpin, so much we build to their exchanges. Daredevil season 1, they have like.
I mean, I love how Daredevil season 3, we basically don't get him coming to blows at all until the last episode.
So that's what's really exciting to me. That each season we keep the interactions, like the in-person interactions between them, very minimal. Season 1, there's like 2 scenes where they share together: the warehouse fight and then the end fight in the alley. Then they're kind of talking on the radio, but it's not. They don't want to split hairs. Season 2, it's only the one interrogation scene in the prison. Then season 3, like you said, we build up to the one interaction, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
The very end of the season. So just the fact that it seems like at some point, it seems like they're going to be interacting a lot more this season, which just feels like, oh boy, that could be really exciting. Or at the very least, it seems like they're going to be interacting that diner a lot earlier in the season, which is, oh god, I'll be so I'm going to be so happy in March. I can't contain it. I tell you, man, I am just so.
I assume we'll be doing episode by episode recaps.
Oh, you better believe it.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, so Alto Nights. Believe it or not, Dragon, I actually got this trailer and I saw it for the first time. I mean, I would have looked it up, but
I
I
don't
saw it
believe
for
you
the
would
first
have.
time. I saw it for the first time when I was going to see Companion today. So I was like, oh, there we go. Cool. I don't need to look it up. There it is. Dragon, is it just me or does this trailer have like a serious sense of like self-importance to it? I don't know. Like on paper, it definitely looks promising. Obviously, De Niro and Pacino teaming up again. I mean, that's obviously cool. What?
Where are you getting Pacino from, Tiki?
Who was it then?
Well, it's saying it's De Niro. It's De Niro playing both parts.
Oh,
That's the
oh
gag.
shit.
So it's literally De Niro playing both Frank
Okay, you know
Costello
what
and
it is then? I like I said, I have a headache today, and I think I literally when I saw De Niro, I was like, oh, okay, the other guy must be Pacino. That's fucking stupid of me. That's fucking dumb of me. I acknowledge that. Um, yeah, my whole thing is like, okay, that is kind of interesting that he's playing two parts. That's definitely different. I don't know. I like I said, I do think that there's a little bit of an air of self-importance going on here. I think it's got a little bit of a, oh, look, it's a gangsta movie, and gangsta movies are Hollywood classics. I don't know where I'm getting that accent from.
yeah, weird.
But I don't know, like it looks solid. Obviously, like De Niro playing against De Niro is an interesting concept. Dragon, I gotta be honest with you, I don't necessarily know if we like what's the gimmick in that. Like, why couldn't we cast like a Pacino in that role? I feel like that's why I'm kind of like thrown off about this. Is that like I don't like it's not like it's like Colby says 2025's year of one actor playing two parts, but like yeah, but Mickey 17 is like there's a reason for that.
True.
I don't understand, Dragon. This whole movie just kind of seems like it's a little up its own ass. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, so Barry Levinson's doing this, and I think initially when you see okay De Niro in a gangster movie, you're thinking Scorsese. So I was initially like, okay, I was kind of relieved that okay, this doesn't seem like something Scorsese would do because this feels like something that Levinson's doing to cash in on The Irishman. That's essentially what this movie feels like because the whole gimmick here is that okay, so we de-aged one of the De Niros as the idea. So it's basically
why like I like it just seems like such a gimmick to me.
Yeah, you're right though. That's what I'm saying. It's a gimmick. It does seem like an odd choice, but I mean, I'm really interested in the whole like the idea like the two generations of mobster are basically someone who's like the younger up and comer, and the guy who's like the big boss at the end of it. So I forget. I think Costello's the older boss at the end. So you have Frank Costello and you got Vito Genovese.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, the story is two mobsters going against each other, basically in adapting like the messy breakup of the mob world that happens. That's essentially the story that we're telling here. I had these two mobsters, basically warred against each other and how it went down. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know how it's going to turn out. It definitely is a movie that is sold on a gimmick of two De Niro's, so that doesn't instill confidence. But it does. I don't know. It looks kind of good to me. The trailer looks good. It's like it's been a while since we've had De Niro in a full on like mob movie. I'm not. The Irishman is more of like De Niro kind of factoring into.
Oh come on, The Irishman is how is The Irishman not a mob movie?
I'm sorry. Was I finished talking?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Not that The Irishman isn't a mob movie, but that's more of like De Niro being factored into a mob movie versus like De Niro as a mob boss. Because he's not a mob boss now.
It's been a while since I've seen The Irishman. Like
So he's the house painter. He is the
yeah.
killer
You're
for
right.
the
You're
mob. That's
right.
what I'm saying. We haven't really had De Niro in like a
In like a
mob
mob
leadership role.
leader type role. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So that's the interesting thing to me because we really haven't had that like full on since I want to say since the Untouchables.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that to me is kind of the throwback there that has me interested in seeing him kind of play that. Just look at the end of the day, if I'm going to put my heart on my sleeve here, look, De Niro was my grandfather's guy. He worshipped Robert De Niro and the movie, and all of his movies, good or bad. Especially in the declining, the declining years of De Niro, where he would do stuff like the Righteous Kill, for example. Righteous Kill, it's all right. It's not really nothing to write home about, But he loved it because and you know why I loved it? Because that's De Niro and Pacino hanging out and just doing their thing.
Right. Yeah.
So is it as good as Heat? Heck no. But it's De Niro and Pacino. There's cash. Literally, De Niro has cash in his name, man. There's cachet in that name. So at the end of the day, just I'm sold on this, but kind of on principle. Like, you know what? I don't know if I'm going to see it in theaters, but I will definitely look into it. The moment it streams, I'm watching this. I owe it to myself. I gotta watch it. I gotta see what De Niro's up to if I can.
All right, fair enough. I mean, I'll probably watch it. It just kind of seems like one of those things where I don't really think the gimmick is like, it seems like that necessary, but it looks intriguing at least.
When was the last time you watched like a really good mob biopic anyway?
I mean, probably The Irishman.
Well, there you go. Been a while. You got the little buffer there.
All right. Okay. So yeah. Moving on. Wow, this might be one of the shortest like news segments we've had in a while. All right, fuck you. It's January. Okay, so one of them days. This is a pretty solid January comedy. It stars Keke Palmer, and then I forget the name of the other actress, but she's a rapper. She's one of those rappers that has like her name is like 3 letters, but anyway,
she's got a silly name.
She's got a silly rapper name. God, I'm so fucking white. Anyways,
hey, you're not white. You're David Hyde Pierce skiing, my friend.
Ooh, are you teeing something up there, Dragon? Are you teasing something?
Me? No.
All right. So this was a fun. Essentially, Dragon. How I would describe this is, it's kind of like. It's kind of like. I'm sorry, I was blanking on the name for a minute. It's kind of like Sean Baker for idiots. Like, I know that sounds mean, but it's not meant to be mean. It's like Sean Baker is the guy who did stuff like Nora and the Florida Project. This is basically like, it's the same kind of vibe where it's like people that are like, just living their lives, trying to get by. The whole thing is like basically a struggle to get back rent money that one of the characters' boyfriends stupidly wasted instead of actually paying the rent. It's a fun comedy. It's not really a lot more than that. I'm not going to lie. I kind of thought it dragged a little bit in the middle. I think the leads have good chemistry with each other. I think Keke Palmer continues to be a standout. We're definitely going to talk about her in one of our Black History Heroes retrospectives this month. So, yeah, little tease there. I don't really have a lot to say about this one, Dragon. I mean, obviously, I'm not the target audience. This is a very, this is very much for the Black community. Not to say that Dan Murrell actually made a good point in his review that, just because you're not the target audience doesn't mean you can't enjoy it. And yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it okay for what it is, but I get the feeling that, like, if I was part of the culture, that I would get a lot more out of it. I would think it's more funny than it was. The funniest thing in the movie, though? Maud Apatow, Judd Apatow's daughter. She's in it, and she basically plays like the token white girl who moves into the apartment complex. And she's really funny as like, she wants to be friends with everybody, but she does not understand the kind of like cultural shift there that's happening. I don't know, man. This is a weird movie to talk about. It's fine. It's got a good chemistry. It's got a third act breakup that's very predictable and very kind of like, all right, we're going to go for the motions of this. It's just all right. I had fun with it. It's not like a dumpster fire of a movie like a lot of January movies are, but it wasn't great. It was okay. Okay. Colby says, I was in a theater with two other white dudes all by ourselves, and that's it. It was a very interesting dynamic. We could tell we didn't know if we were allowed to laugh or not. Oh man, that sounds like a very unique theater experience, Colby. Jesus. Okay, Code Geass. I have not heard good things about Star Trek Section 31. That's all I'll say. Has Cap said anything about Star Trek Section 31, Dragon?
I'm unsure. I don't believe he has yet. I mean, he might have, but I haven't really been keeping up with it.
Okay, just curious. All right. I know Kiki Palmer because of True Jackson VP, which is really I always forget that she got her start on the Disney Channel. Obviously I know her most from Nope. So, anyways, so Dragon, you checked out the new Wallace and Gromit movie, the Oscar-nominated Wallace and Gromit movie. What do you think about it? And just for the record, this is one of those movies where I decided to. I'll probably check it out next month, but I decided since it's on Netflix, it'd be a really easy catch up for me to do. So. I haven't seen it yet, but I intend to.
Yeah, so Wallace and Gromit: Vengeance Most Foul, the return of Wallace and Gromit. It's an event because basically it was kind of like really an event because of the return of their most acclaimed foe, Feathers McGraw. Won him the Oscar, in fact. Yes, won him the best short Oscar, for Wrong Trousers. Anyway, yeah, I tell you, man, this is a fun celebration of Wallace and Gromit. All the Aardman hallmarks, you know and love. They're in here. The humor is very on point. It's basically they go into the gardening business. As you can kind of tell, there is a lawn gnome. So basically, it's these are like gnome bots, and essentially, Wallace built a gnome bot, and everybody kind of has a knack for gardening, and basically they turn into a small business. Very very kind of Three Stooges esque kind of premise.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great time, and just reminds you how cool. It's one of those movies that kind of reminds you how cool animation is as a medium. It's a movie for animation geeks. I feel not only for them, but I think I think anyone can enjoy this.
I feel like out of all the subgenres of animation, I think stop motion is like the genre for animation geeks, or at least styles, I should say.
Yeah. So I want to be clear. I'm not just saying this is only for animation geeks. I think it's a good family movie. I think it's good for everyone. I think everyone has a fondness for Wallace and Gromit to some degree, and I think everyone would enjoy it just based on it. Even if they don't
really like. I'm very picky about British humor, so
yeah, but it's like Aardman British humor, man. Come on.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Anyway.
Look, I'm sure I'll enjoy it. I just Wallace and Gromit has never really been like the end all be all thing for me as far as that goes.
So you watched the shorts for Wallace and Gromit, right? You watched The Wrong Trousers.
You know what? I have, but when I was a kid, I could probably stand a rewatch.
I mean, they're all on Amazon right now. Give them a watch.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, the point being, this overall, let me be clear, I thought this was good. It's not as great as Curse of the Were-Rabbit, though, in my opinion. I really like Curse of the Were-Rabbit. I think that one is that was very much kind of like,
And the thing is, I think Curse of the Were-Rabbit, like, it's good. It's a little overhyped for me, so I'm not really necessarily going in with that expectation. Kind of like, I kind of feel like this movie's kind of having that like Fury Road versus Furiosa effect, where like it's kind of living in the shadow of Furiosa, much like this is living in the shadow of Curse of the Were-Rabbit. But like I said, I don't really have that because I'm not that attached to Curse of the Were-Rabbit.
Well, I will say that here's the thing that this movie has that Curse of the Were-Rabbit doesn't. Feathers McGraw is pitch perfect. Now, Tiki, what I recommend you do is watch that short and then watch this movie. Watch The Wrong Trousers and then watch this.
Okay.
At a minimum.
Noted.
Okay, because I think you'll get the most out of it if you do that. Because they recap it, but they recap it pretty impressively too. And also, our new Wallace actor is doing pretty good. He was kind of their promotional Wallace, like the guy they needed for a sound alike for the video games and stuff. And then they basically put him in and they tagged him in to take over the role. And it's pretty seamless. You don't notice it at all. Really. I think it's like, yeah, that's Wallace. He sounds exactly like Wallace should sound.
Mm-hmm.
But I just I had a good time with it. It was like it's good to see Wallace and Gromit back again. Maybe not as groundbreaking as the first time we put him theatrical, but it was good.
All right, cool. I like Wallace and Gromit enough, but I hate Wallace so much as a character. He's so mean to poor Gromit.
Oh, he is. He's not mean to Gromit. He's oblivious to Gromit, but he's not mean to Gromit.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. All right, Dragon. Let me tell you about Companion, which, as I mentioned, I literally just saw like a few hours ago. Dragon, I think this is going to be the movie that gets me into Jack Quaid as an actor. Because, I've always kind of had a little bit of a surface level distance to him. In The Boys, he's like not necessarily my favorite performance in The Boys. But I got to tell you, this movie, I think he really kills it. And I think he really does. It's honestly such a good performance that it genuinely does kind of make me compelled to actually go back and watch the latest season of The Boys, which I kind of skipped based on the kind of like word of mouth surrounding it, which I know I should form my own opinions, and I will. Colby, yes, I did not see the trailer, and having said that, I really enjoyed it. Now, I want to say I don't love this movie the way some other people do. Colby, I will say that one thing that really bothers me about this movie is that there's a line that happens like super early on, like right before the title drop, right before the titles. It's a very specific line. You probably know what I'm talking about. That literally telegraphs the ending of the movie. I genuinely wish they didn't have that line in there, because even with the twist, I kind of feel like even with the twist, you still know where it's going based on that one line. Dragon, I don't want to say what the twist is, even though the trailer did give it away, because honestly, this movie is a ride. Yeah. And like I said, Colby, like even in like the second half, I was like, okay, like we know exactly how this is going to pan out. Why'd they have to spell it out like that? This is basically the only thing I can tell you, Dragon, is that Jack Quaid and Sophie Thatcher, who she's having a moment as well. She was in Heretic. She was, of course, the biker girl from Book of Boba Fett. I think that's the only thing you know her from, Dragon. And,
okay.
And then she's also, my favorite role of hers is she's the young Natalie in Yellow Jackets, which is coming back. I'm excited. But anyways, so it's Jack Quaid and her. They have like this actually really adorable meet cute, which, may or may not be completely manufactured. But,
I think Jack Quaid's a really good romantic lead, frankly. Honestly, it's based on, my
Here's the thing about this movie is that he's a decent, like, he is a good romantic lead in the sense that, like, that meet cute, like, you get the appeal there. You get, like, why this guy would be charming, and kind of, like, you'd instantly fall in love with him.
Yeah.
But the whole point of this movie is that, no, he's a piece of shit. Like, it's very much one of those, like, kind of like he's a monster underneath that exterior. I'm not going to use a Neil Gaiman comparison.
Yeah, don't use that. Come on.
No, but again, there's a big twist in this movie. I don't want to reveal. I don't think this is your type of movie anyway. Should I just tell you what the twist is, Dragon?
I mean, I don't see anyone watching. Like, has Peregrine watched it yet?
I assume Peregrine.
Sounds like he has. I mean, I don't know. Do you want to spoil it for everyone else?
She's a robot.
Oh, okay.
And you find that out like a third of the way through. And I got to tell you, as someone who's not seen the trailers or even the poster, that I think kind of spells it out a little bit with the eyes, it was a really good twist. Especially because rewatch it, like there are like certain lines, like his nickname for her is literally Bee Boop. And there's a line towards the beginning where he's like, "Come on, you can't lie to me." And it's like, we just think he's kind of being like vaguely controlling, but no, we find out later in the robot rules, she literally cannot lie to him. So there's cool setups like that without obviously spelling it out. I think this just kind of at the end of the day turns into a little bit of a cat and mouse thriller. It's not done by the same director as Barbarian, but it's being advertised as the same producers of Barbarian. I got to tell you, if I didn't know it wasn't done by the same director, I would have thought it was done by the same director, because it's got that same sort of like tone where it's mostly a comedy with some horror elements, and it's like every act has like a twist that kind of like propels the narrative. It's very much about playing with audience expectations. And again, that one line towards the beginning of the movie that just literally spells out the ending. If that wasn't there, I think I'd enjoy this a lot more. Ultimately, I'd say this is a solid 7 out of 10. I honestly think people are kind of overhyping it a little bit just for being a January movie. The other movie I saw in January I thought was a lot better, but we'll get there when we get there. But I still had a fun time with it. Like I said, I think Jack Quaid is probably the reason to watch it. Thatcher's really good too, but Jack Quaid was kind of like, yeah, okay, I can see why people have an appeal for him.
Well, if you want a Jack Quaid movie to check out, you got Novocaine this year.
Yeah, but John Wick.
Fine. Remind me, did you finish watching My Adventure Superman season 2? You did watch that, didn't you?
No, I actually need to catch up on that.
Well, there you go. More Jack Quaid.
Who does he play in that?
Are you kidding me right now?
No, I'm not.
He's Superman.
Oh my god, I'm an idiot. Oh, you're right. Okay, I'm sorry.
He's really good too.
Okay, I'm sorry.
They're ridiculous.
No, it's just when I think My Adventures with Superman, obviously as a Lost fan, I'm thinking fucking Ben Linus himself, Michael Emerson. Like, that's what my focal point is with that cast. But all right. Anyways.
Anyway.
Okay, so Back in Action. I hate this title because I cannot disassociate it from Looney Tunes.
I know. I'm with you on that. The first thing I thought of was Back in Action. Like,
right.
Okay, so first off, not Looney Tunes. Just put that in your mind. It's not Looney Tunes.
I mean, I would hope not. That would be a twist though if it was just advertised as a generic Netflix action movie and then fucking Looney Tunes pop up.
Okay, so this is a simple comfort watch, my friend. This is it's an action spy comedy by Seth Gordon. Mm. So Seth Gordon, he's done good TV work. His film work, however, it's not great. This is like the first. I think it's honestly one of the first good movies that he's done.
Remind me what else he's done.
Okay, so Seth Gordon. I looked it up earlier. Let me think. Seth Gordon. He did. I know he did Identity Thief, the one with most.
Oh yeah,
that was him, and he's done. I'm trying to hold on. So he did Identity Thief. Oh, he did one of my least favorite Christmas movies ever. He did 4 Christmases. So I've honestly, here's the thing. He did that. I don't know if he directed Horrible Bosses or not. So that one's pretty good. So if he did the first one of that, then that's
Horrible Bosses is a decent.
There you go. So nothing wrong with Horrible. Okay, fine. But the exception of Horrible Bosses, he's done a lot of bad movies. Anyway. So so this was fun. This was essentially Jamie Foxx and Cameron Diaz. It was kind of a return for Cameron Diaz. It's been ages since we've really seen her do something. It's 2 of them. They're CIA spies. Basically, the cold open of the movie is really good. So basically, they're CIA spies and they're on a mission. And during the mission, they find out that she's pregnant. And then basically, they find a way to get out of the business and they raise kids in suburbia. So it's kind of a fun subversion of what you think it's going to be. And it's they got really good chemistry. They're even better. Like in the field, they had good chemistry. Like in the cold open, but like right after the opening, just seeing them in suburbia all domesticated is really fun, really solid. Again, they're a really solid couple. Just plot wise, I want to be very clear. Plot wise, we are not reinventing the wheel. Okay, we're not.
A Netflix action movie, not reinventing the wheel? Oh my God.
Tiki, I'm sorry. I should have told you to get the fainting couch first. I'm sorry. This is and look, I won't. Just so you know, there's a very obvious plot twist in this movie.
That's what I've heard. I've heard it has an obvious plot twist. That's one of the few things I have heard.
The whole movie, I was thinking, please don't that twist, and it ended up being that twist. So,
right.
So, but here's the thing, though.
It's a frustrating thing about freaking Companion, man. It's like it does have really good twists, but the ending is so telegraphed. Anyways.
Yep. So this is funny. It's a funny, and honestly, the action is very well shot. It's again simple comfort watch. Also, what I really took away from this is a fun reminder that Jamie Foxx can be really funny. He's really funny in this.
Absolutely. Yeah.
This is like he's always playing, he's always going for like the dramas or playing the tough guy. This is really fun though. He's getting a lot of comedy in this. That was really refreshing. It's it's.
I mean, Jamie Foxx was in the cinematic masterpiece Strays, Dragon.
Well, yeah.
All right.
That's what I'm saying. This is like a Jamie Foxx. This is kind of remind you like Jamie Foxx was really was really good in Soul, and this is kind of like where we're kind of pulling from in a sense. It's like I like seeing the layers on Jamie Foxx rather than playing he's the cool Hollywood guy who gets he's contractually obligated to get a laugh.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's just at the end of the day, it's a lot of fun, but it's sticking to the Netflix formula. But at least it's funny, At least it's not a drag. The third act is like, yeah, we kind of been there and done that. At least it doesn't go on for like an extra hour like a lot of them do. So I mean, I don't know. It was cute. It's cute and fun.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I saw Presence. Dragon, do you know anything about this?
No.
Okay, it's Steven Soderbergh. And this is one of his it's obviously not like an Ocean's movie. It's one of his more I feel like Soderbergh is one of those directors that very much has like the one for you, one for me kind of mentality. Yeah. This is pretty much a one for me. But Dragon, I'm going to say this right now, bro. This is a lock for this year's seasonal shenanigans. Or no, I'm sorry, Haunted Holiday Hijinks. This is a lock. And I think this is the type of horror movie that's not even really a horror movie that I think you're going to freaking dig. So essentially the premise is that the camera is the ghost. And it's a haunted house movie. And we see everything from the perspective of the ghost that is haunting the house. And if that's not an intriguing premise in its own right, what I really love about this movie is the family dynamic. So we have Lucy Liu plays the mom of the family. And Lucy Liu, the dad in this is amazing. He's up there with Dragon, who's the lead in Your Honor, Stolbar, right?
Yeah, Michael Stolbar, yeah.
Stolbar, yeah. He plays a really good dad in Call Me By Your Name, and this dad is kind of on the level of good dads, where there's a daughter and a son, both teenagers. The son is about to go to college. He's a star athlete and everything. The daughter's in high school. She's very much an introvert, and her best friend just died of a drug overdose, so she's very much in mourning, emotionally just really fragile. Lucy Liu, Dragon, it's a situation where the dad is awesome, but Lucy Liu very much has this Helga Pataki, Olga Pataki thing going on, where she obviously prefers the son and kind of treats her daughter like shit. And so there's just this great family drama at the heart of this thing. Like I said, the dad in this movie is freaking amazing. But as the movie goes on, you kind of start to piece together, the daughter is sensitive to the ghost. She's starting to wonder, is this the ghost of my best friend? Is this the ghost of maybe another girl who died of a drug overdose? You kind of get the pieces together of what actually happened. It's a really intriguing movie with breadcrumbs of mystery that just really, I think, really do a good job of building everything up. Let's see. One of the things that's great about it is it's an hour and 25 minutes. It's in and out. It's very efficient runtime and storytelling. Dragon, the ending of this movie, Lucy Liu basically gives a Captain Phillips worthy freak out at the end of this movie. And I'm not going to tell you the context of how that freak out happens, but just the acting is incredible. It very much reminded me of how Tom Hanks throughout all of Captain Phillips is about as reserved as he can be in the situation, but then at the end he's just lets it all out. So yeah,
Hanks was so good in that moment.
I think that moment is one of Hanks' best performances ever in a single scene. Yeah, Colby says it's a lock for a 2026 Golden Tiki's best ending nomination. I would agree. This ending is it's pretty phenomenal, and you know how I feel about good endings. So we are covering this for Haunted Holiday Hijinks, my friend. I mean, this thing is it's not just a good January movie. It's just a great movie, period. All right. Okay, so next up, we got some TV, which is going to include those awkward, like, hey, Creature Commandos and Skeleton Crew were a thing for, like, the first week of January. So, Creature Commandos, Dragon, what do you think?
So yeah, this was the the trend. This is kind of the first, technically the first foray into the DCU that James Gunn has been touting about. It's kind of our lead into the Superman movie. It's kind of I thought it was a smooth shift from the Suicide Squad movie to kind of the monster, the gods and monsters theme that he's kind of he's kind of prognosticating the first. He's going by books. I think he's calling like each kind of like chapter in like the movies, like each phase of the movie's books. It's like the first book's kind of gods and monsters, and this is very much kind of what we're doing with the Creature Commandos being the monsters.
Mhm.
On its, but here's the thing: taking the whole like transition point, just kind of setting the tone for the DC universe that he's building here on its own. I thought this was very well done. I thought great animation. I love James Gunn's writing on this. The flashback structure in the 7 episodes. I just thought it was very well executed, and I thought it was kind of everything I kind of hoped for it. Rick Flag, he was everything I wanted for sure. I mean, I love Frank Grillo being cast as Rick Flag, and he was my favorite character in the show.
I have some nitpicks with it. I honestly think this is a situation where the first half is stronger than the second half. The second half isn't bad, but and I didn't get a chance to talk about the last episode with you. Honestly, I kind of feel like the last episode is like one of my least favorite episodes of the season. I'm not really thrilled with who they decide to kill off. I get that it's the Suicide Squad. I get that anyone can go at any time. I mean, obviously, it's not technically the Suicide Squad, but it's kind of, that same idea that anyone could go at any time. But, like, I just don't really understand the plot motivation to kill off the character that we killed off when we kind of spent the whole season developing them and developing the relationships. And I don't know. I feel like you and I literally said this. I kind of feel like Weasel would have made the most sense to kill off. And but I really don't. I liked the princess when she was having the sexy times with Rick Flag. I
Don't
thought
we all?
funny. Ultimately, I think the princess being the big bad it fell a little flat for me. I think the kind of fake out stuff with Cersei is a little bit over convoluted. And I do think that this is honestly the first James Gunn team ensemble project where I think there's just a little bit of an issue with character screen time distribution. I think Rick Flag actually, like, how he falls out of it, like, a little bit in the second half. It's kind of weird. It's like, I feel like there's just it's a little bit rocky as far as, like, who gets screen time and who doesn't from episode to episode. So I don't think this is perfect. I think out of every James Gunn superhero thing that he's done, this is probably the least consistent, but it's still very good. I dig the animation style. Compared to What If Season 3, which was airing around the same time, this thing's a fucking masterpiece. But and obviously it's got the James Gunn charm, it's got the James Gunn humor. I am very much looking forward to Superman. I just don't think this is like a perfect show by any means, but I still had a lot of fun with it.
I think it sets a tone kind of nicely, and it's also it sets a tone without stepping on Superman's toes. For that one's the one that's really going to set the tone. This is just showing that okay, we're kind of taking what you liked from the Suicide Squad movie and Peacemaker, and we're kind of transitioning it into we're kind of setting the groundwork for a new universe here.
Okay, Colby says we need GI Robot. Yes, Colby. Oh my God, GI Robot. Jesus Christ. Isn't it funny that like GI Robot happens and like a month later Elon Musk is out there doing literal fucking Nazi salutes? Like it's just fucking not gonna get political, but yes, we need GI Robot in a time like this. I agree with you, Colby. I'll leave it at that. All right. Next up we have Skeleton Crew. I kind of said my piece on it. Once again, like, I don't feel as strongly about the last episode being one of the weaker episodes, but I kind of feel like like Colby and I both agreed, like, the last episode was a solid episode. It wasn't necessarily the best ending, Overall, though, I had a blast with this thing. I'm not going to say it's about on the same level as Andor. I think Andor maybe stuck to landing a little bit better. Obviously, they're kind of trying to do different things, but I mean, I think this thing kind of has that sort of like tone of childhood whimsy that Star Wars has been missing for a long time, and it really brought that sort of element of the franchise back. What do you think, Dragon?
So yeah, basically, I think this is John Watts helping Star Wars out majorly when they really needed it. It's very refreshing doing like the pirate themed adventure. I will say this: no Hondo. It's the biggest note I have against it. No Hondo. Very disappointing. Given it's a very pirate set. Essentially, it's all pirates, and there's no Hondo at all.
Yeah.
Sounds like there might be a season 2 on the way. So seriously, if Hondo doesn't show up in one of these shows, it's just I don't know what they're doing. So otherwise, it's very practical, very accessible in the story. It's very much. I think it's a show. It's very accessible to any passersby who just want kind of want the vibe of Star Wars without literally just redoing the movies or like adding like extra spokes to the Skywalker wheel. It's very much the simple way of putting it. Goonies mixed in with Star Wars, which is pretty interesting combination. It did work out pretty well. I mean, it makes sense that we're kind of in a post-Stranger Things generation, and Stranger Things has been dragging its feet. So this is like a fun little interim that's I think, gonna get people and I don't know. It just seems to be a formula of like people adore the Goonies, no matter what the generation is. Only be kind of renamed what the movie is. We've done Goonies, we've done Stranger Things, and now we got the Skeleton Crew. It's 3 generations of Goonies.
Mm-hmm.
Jude Law, he, I thought. Sorry. I thought Jude Law really brought it here. I loved this character. I think he and Smee or SM33, however you like to refer to him as, I thought they were very much the MVPs. I just loved the idea of Jude Law's character just dealing with these rambunctious kids and just being at wit's end. I thought that was really funny. Yeah, it was just very fun. Just seeing this pirate stuck with these kids and just. With the last episode, I thought, I think we kind of dragged out the last episode a bit. I thought it was
I agree.
finish. I thought overall was a good finish, but it just felt like for example, when the moment with the barrier was very cool, but just getting to that moment, I did not think it needed to take as long as it took. There's a lot of like if, for example, if you were watching it again, you feel like I should hit the little skip 10 seconds button.
Yes, yeah, totally.
Like until like
what though? I will say that the whole like skip 10 seconds button, that's been like a reoccurring big problem with Disney Star Wars recently, like pretty consistently as I watch those shows. I kind of feel that urge. And this show, I really don't think it had that up until that last episode. So I'll give it credit, though. I think up until the last episode, I think the pacing was pretty damn on point.
Yeah, it does feel like there's unfinished business at the end of this season, which I don't know. Maybe we should have gone a skosh more definitive with an ending. I don't know.
I kind of feel like if season 1 was like the pirate adventure, season 2 is going to be kind of like the political intrigue drama of like what happens with Atin now that their power structure has been completely decimated. So I'm intrigued to see what we do with that there.
Well, presumably, with the season 2, with the political intrigue, it would have to be okay. So we got to factor in the Mando into the universe, essentially. Like basically, kind of the Mando era Star Wars is now going to be applied to this very cut off planet.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
All right. Anyways, solid cast all around though. Really like the characters. Really like the world building. So it was fun.
Yeah,
definitely a breath of fresh air that Star Wars needed.
I'm going to say this. I'm going to say it's potentially the more accessible Andor.
It's the more accessible Andor, but I still think Andor overall.
Well, I didn't say better. I just said accessible.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm just saying. I think everyone can at least give Skeleton Crew a try if they like Skeleton Crew. Literally, at the end of Skeleton Crew, if you finish binging through, you're going to get, hey, watch Andor. There you go.
Right.
Works like a charm.
All right. Did you end up watching the Jerry Springer documentary?
did I watch? Yes.
Okay, just wondering.
How could I not watch this?
All right. I didn't know you were that intrigued by it. I thought it was good. I think, honestly, Dragon, I think I've seen better. This is kind of like,
Well, just let's say the title of it first, please.
yeah, Jerry Springer fights cameras action.
There you go. Okay, now go.
The one thing I will say about this, and obviously it's not the fault of the documentary itself, but I feel like this is one of those situations where this really needed to be done while Jerry was still alive. You know?
Yeah.
Like I feel like the absence of actual Jerry Springer interviews in this thing is really felt. Do you get that same vibe?
Well, yeah, but yes, I do. But it feels like if we had Jerry Springer, we could only put him in part one, responding to things, because he wouldn't be. I don't think he'd be willing to respond to stuff in part two.
I mean, fair enough, I guess.
I don't know. It just feels like you're right, though. It feels like an odd. Here's where I come down. Okay, so this suffers from the whole thing of like, it's the story is kind of broken up into two acts, so it kind of somewhat justifies the 2-episode thing, but it does feel like I think we should have gotten to know Jerry Springer more, which then I think it's having more either interviews or archival.
I'm just saying the whole thing is like very much like him, kind of like it's a reflection on his legacy, what he wanted to do with the show, and how the show kind of got away from him. So
yeah,
that's where I think having his his personal perspective on it would have been very valuable.
Well, no, I'm with you in that regard. I just feel like that's the missing component, and that really feels like we should have had we're knowing all about the legacy, but not really about the man himself. And I guess by the man himself, be more about like the intentions firsthand, perhaps. But it just feels like that's kind of what's lacking for me. This is all about like the legacy versus like the man.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying we should have not had the legacy, because I think the legacy component's important. But it feels like kind of in 3 parts. We should have had like part 1 established Jerry Springer, and then the rest would have been like the show, and then that. But I don't know.
Yeah, I feel you.
But regardless, you're usually very much the stickler for the whole why couldn't we just have it all in 1 part? Why did we break it up in 2? Do you like the 2-act structure thing?
I mean, like you said, I feel like it makes more sense here than it does otherwise, but I still kind of feel like, yeah, why not just make this a documentary?
I do like the build up
kind of in that camp.
with the split. I like the building dread, though. I got to admit,
sure.
I'm a sucker for building dread and anticipation.
I will say, I think the most interesting elements here were the interviews with the staff members, like the producers, who were they realized what the show was, and they were like, oh my god, like, what are we doing here?
I found the large man with the cane very captivating. I thought his like regret and remorse that he felt very, very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I gotta tell you, I love just that one, that haunted producer though with the cane, the big guy with the cane, just very compelling. Just in doing the story in 2 acts, but basically show that. Here's the thing. I watched this because Jerry Springer has always been an interesting figure to me, and when he passed, I think we kind of really brought that up. And seeing that being kind of on our mind, it just reminded me that Jerry Springer was always this very civil, very docile guy who was hosting the complete polar opposite to the man in every way. The original trash TV show, it's white trash. There's, it's the white trash version of the Oprah Winfrey or the Phil Donahue show. That's essentially that's what he was working with.
Essentially, yeah.
So I just always found that very interesting. So that's why I was very much sold on watching this. So so apart from the circus that I think we're all tuning in for the circus. I did not see the horrifying implications coming out there, and I thought that's really kind of kept me.
Okay, well, there's that story that's been circulating. I believe it was the Jenny Jones thing, where there was an episode of the Jenny Jones show where there was a best friend who came out as gay to his best friend, and admitted that he was in love with him, and then the guy ended up killing him over it. Did you hear about that?
No, I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, it's been making the rounds as far as true crime media stuff goes, but this situation really reminds me of that, especially the situation where the mother actually ends up dead.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, like you are literally like, and I will say that even as a kid, I was kind of like, who the fuck would even agree to go on a show like this?
Yes, I mean that I found that is very interesting. It's the fact my favorite little bit in the whole thing is just the origin of Jerry. It's the origin of like the whole like literally they said Jerry, Jerry. They started the cheer because again they knew no one's going to know who this guy is. So if everyone's just saying Jerry, Jerry,
I
there's
love that actually.
the
Yeah,
assumption that he must be important. I thought that was genius. Like, oh my god. This is what I'm
right,
saying. So
right.
I love the behind the scenes component of how did the trash TV show become the sensation that it was? Because we had things like that, and the fact that Oprah she was less civil than Jerry Springer was in regards to the show. Like again, the
Mhm,
fact that
mhm.
again, like the fact his daughter had special needs. Like these little factoids are really kind of I don't know they added like some I don't know, they added some interesting layers to the man, and then we go into this horrifying thing of like I love from the get go we have the we have the man marrying the horse thing. It's like as like it was we
Which
tee it
that's
up.
got to be directly what the Family Guy thing was, right?
Well, yeah. Well, remember it was like on a
Actually, I'm
yeah.
a horse. Actually, I'm a broom. Oh my God, you're a
Well,
horse.
it's literally on like a Maury Povich and or Jerry
Right,
Springer type
right.
anyways. But yeah, that's the thing. So it's I love that we kind of teed that up and then we was like we kind of built to is like okay we need guys we need ratings we need something really shocking. The fact that people would call in they had these essentially the polls were somewhat accurate, but then they were blown out of proportion. Then like staged like kind of like in a wrestling kind of way. We're like, okay, look, you're gonna. There's like a little bit of there's stage choreography and stuff, but then we have the darker implications in part two, where it's like, okay, you can't go home unless you get into a Jerry Springer style fight.
Right, right, right. Yeah, yeah,
So that's the
exactly.
oh wow, like that's the kind of the twisted stuff. I don't think any of us saw
Sure,
coming. So it was
sure.
rather informative and both like kind of like the oh isn't that quaint to like oh god that's scary.
Right.
So it was a solid watch. It just felt kind of again would have liked it to be a little longer. So this a little more about Jerry Springer himself, especially given that he has passed. Like that element, we really much kind of pass over entirely. The fact the man passed, but
Hmm, hmm.
So I'm with you there, Teague. It does feel like there's a timing issue in regards to that. So I don't know.
Yeah, it really should have come out like 5 years ago or so. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Okay, let's see. Next up, we have It's Always Sunny season 11. Okay, let me get my good old list of It's Always Sunny episodes out. While I'm pulling that up, Dragon, I will say I did watch the first episode of season 12, and I gotta tell you, it's one of my personal favorites. It's the one where the gang all turn into black people, and it's the musical. Do you remember that one?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, man, that was great. What are the rules? What are the rules? What are the rules? Anyways. Yeah, I think honestly, I think season 11 maybe a little bit of a downgrade from season 10.
Did
There's
they do the POV episode this season?
Being frank.
Yeah.
Yes, I thought it was kind of a little. That's the thing, Dragon. Here's the thing with this season for me. I kind of feel like a lot. I feel like the movie is or the show is kind of going into a direction of I feel like it's getting a little too ambitious. Like I thought that episode was a little bit too artsy for its own good. I didn't really find it that funny,
It's
honestly.
like a once in a blue moon thing, though. I don't know. It feels
Sure.
kind of
Anyways, let's see. Shardy McDinnis to Electric Boogaloo. I mean, anytime we have Shardy McDinnis, that's funny, so that's fine. The gang hits the slopes. I think was a really good one. There's an episode of South Park that also parodies like this kind of like skiing rivalry sort of thing. I really like that one. I
now.
really like
Remind me, did David Hyde Pierce show up in that episode or no?
No Dragon. David Hyde Pierce did not show up in that episode.
Because it sounds like we could have put him in that episode, and then we could have crossed the episode over to the premiere of season 12.
Uh-huh. Mac and Dennis moved to the suburbs was a highlight, and again, I really love Dennis as a character. I love his insanity. I love him just losing his shit mentally, and this was definitely a highlight. Also, this episode introduces us to Old Black Man, and I love that they're actually like bringing that character back. Okay, let's see. I mean, honestly, Dragon, a lot of these episodes just kind of run together for me. I will say McPoyle versus Ponderosa, the trial of the century. Like, I'm not big on the McPoyles or the Ponderosas. I thought this episode was all right, though. I thought it kind of leaned in on the strength of, like, the gang. Like, I believe Charlie is... No, Uncle Jack. Oh, my God. Uncle Jack with the fucking hands, Dragon. Oh, my God. that alone kind of makes the episode for me. Charlie catches a leprechaun is another highlight. Just a great Charlie episode. The gang goes to hell. I thought part 1 was really good, like as far as like setting up all this tension and plot lines and actually having Mac finally come out of the closet. Part 2 I thought was kind of just okay. It was just a bottle episode with them being locked in the brig the whole time.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, Dragon. Overall, this might be one of my least favorite seasons so far.
Yeah.
It's not that it was like terrible. It's just not a lot of these episodes really stand up. I think
they can't all be Charlie work, Tiki.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think the closest we come is like stuff like Charlie, or I'm sorry, Dennis and Mac move to the suburbs, and then Charlie catches a leprechaun. Like, those are probably the 2 highlights for me. The gang hits the slopes is fun as well, but but you're right. I really don't think there's a Charlie work in here. I really don't think there's a I don't know. I just think overall it's just all right. I'm hoping that season 12 is better. I mean, so far I've seen 2 episodes of season 2 so far. I saw the gang turns black, and then also the gang goes to a water park. Both pretty solid episodes. So I'm kind of, I'm cautiously optimistic that it also we get making Dennis Reynolds a murderer, which, I mean, Dennis is my favorite character on the show, and it's the true crime parody, so I'm very excited about that.
Remind me, you got the episode a while back where it's like Dennis looks like a sex offender, right?
Yes.
We had like Glenn Howerton made up like to look like a fat creepy
guy. Yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, the Dennis system continues to be.
I know that's a big one.
That's my all-time favorite episode of the show, I think.
Yeah, it's hard to beat that one. That one is like that's primo Dennis.
Right.
Oh, by the way, let me ask you. Okay, I'm gonna tee this up for you. Okay, so this current season of It's Always Sunny, the thing that's being hyped up is that they did a crossover with Abbott Elementary.
I did watch the Abbott Elementary one, yeah.
Oh, you did? So I watched it too.
Yeah, I should watch Abbott Elementary. The characters seem fun enough. But yes, I do love that Dennis is very much just like, I don't want to be filmed. Don't film me.
Yeah, apparently the reason was I think Howerton was doing something else, so he wasn't able. They had to write him out, but he's going to be all over. He's going to be all over the second part, from what I hear. That because when that episode, it's kind of funny. It worked in their advantage, I think, because the thing everyone was talking about was, oh God, what did Dennis do that he wasn't in the episode? Right.
It fits with his character for sure.
So I think that absolutely worked in their favor.
All right. But with It's Always Sunny having a release date for the new season, now I definitely have like a deadline as far as getting caught up. So I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely going to do at least one season a month.
Plus, you got to get back in the Curb, man, because right now they're recapping.
I will get Dragon. I will get back into Curb when I finish Sunny. Okay.
I know. I'm just saying, because here's the thing.
Sunny is more urgent.
I'm just saying, because here's the thing. Right now they're recapping like season 5 of Curb on the Curb Enthusiasm podcast, and they are. I don't know. Season 5 is just I'm thinking, oh man, Tiki would love this.
I mean, Colby, obviously, I don't love Dennis on like an emotional level, but I love how fucked up he is and the dynamic that he brings to the show.
Wait, you saw Dennis in the dress that one time, right?
Yes.
God,
he is my favorite character. I mean, I think the gang, and I will say that Max seemed a little less useless this season, especially with the whole season kind of ability to like, yes, finally, he's actually self-aware about the gay thing. All right. And if I remember correctly, let me see. I believe that no, season 12 is not when we get Mac Finds His Pride. That's season 13's finale. So we still got a little way to go for that arc. Anyways. Yeah. Okay. What's next on your end, Dragon?
Icons on Earth, Spider-Man.
Right. I need to get back into these Icons on Earth things they are just solid comfort watches.
Oh man, I tell you, this was a good day. I tell you, when I watched this, this was I I was delighted. Here's the thing: I just kind of happened upon it. I was like scrolling through. It was like, oh, okay, icons are. Wait, I did double Spider Man. They did, because they've done one for Bat. The last one I watched was for Batman. That was like formally the most recent. Then in 2024, apparently they did Spider Man. The Spider-Man franchise. And they kind of teased it up during the Marvel one they did, because they said, "Oh, Sony Spider, that's a story for another time." So they finally did it. Yeah, and of course, Brian Volk Weiss, the guy behind the toys that made us and all these subsequent, things that made us, et cetera, et cetera. He's the guy who kind of champions. I think honestly, with Icons on Earth, he finally cracked the formula. Because I know you were kind of iffy on this stuff. Even as you saw The Simpsons, he's finally got it underway. With Icons on Earth is like the banner that really works.
I think he's certainly improved over time. Like that my big issue with it was essentially that
the referential gag humor,
yeah, it was a little bit too tongue in cheek for my.
That's what I'm saying. These Icons on Earth, less tongue in cheek as you've seen with the ones they have seen, and it's there's more of a through line. There is humor in it, but it's more in the editing. The less it's callbacks. And here's the thing: I think what helps, we have narrators actually. We have actually actors as narrators, and they got Yuri Lowenthal as a Spider-Man as the narrator on this.
Oh, nice.
Which is great. So, so again, he's just utterly perfected things with these Icons on Earth thing. So basically, we go through the journey of all three franchises. We had the Raimi films is in two parts. For the first one, then we cover all three Raimi films, and the Mark Webb films are done in kind of one section. We even cover the abandoned Spider-Man 4 movie, which I was impressed by. I tell you, man, you're gonna watch this thing if you do, and you're gonna say, man, I gotta watch Spider-Man 2 again. Like, to be fair, I think that we all do that. But
here's the thing. I was gonna say, to be fair, I feel like I get that urge like every 6 months or so.
Okay, but let me tell you why. Here's what's gonna make you want to watch Spider-Man 2 again.
All right.
So one of the guys they interviewed was Steve Johnson, who was basically kind of the puppeteering effects. So the guy behind Doc Ock's tentacles. So Steve Johnson, man, this guy, I forgot how cool Steve Johnson was, and he's basically Tony Stark in real life. He's so cool. Like, the guy's like channeling Tony Stark. He's got like cool glasses and everything. He owns the room during the interviews, and again, he's the man who made the tentacle magic happen. We also cover like the whole original Green Goblin mask. We even have the guy who basically made the big decision on the Green Goblin mask. Like, have to answer for his sins. It's a whole thing. It's great. And then then we cover like all the Sony chaos with the Amazing Spider-Man films. It's here's the thing: we show Amy Pascal as a character in this. Now, we don't talk to her directly. She is all over this thing, though. But it's interesting that we look at her in a fond light, but it's like no one that is interviewed is making any bones about it that Sony has no idea what they're doing, but they're saying it in a very nice way. They're very direct about saying that, we don't know what the heck Sony's doing, but they're kind of like just following whatever the corporate overlords are saying on that one.
Right.
And then of course it all bleeds into, like the MCU, the hurdle of the MCU, and just things kind of go out the window, and they're kind of like starting like, a new playground there. It's very, overall, man, all I can tell you is you gotta watch this, and this was such a nice way to spend the Saturday, like just watching all the
Sometimes you just need shit like that to get you through your week, man. I appreciate that.
That's what I'm saying. It was like, oh god, it's like, I remember the thing I found out. I was like, okay, I'm gonna wait till Saturday to watch all this. This is gonna be. I want to make a good. It's gonna have donuts. I'm gonna have Spider-Man. It's gonna be great. And I did. I had donuts, had Spider-Man. I had takeout from my favorite. I was like, yes, that's a Saturday right there.
Nice.
Yeah. Plus, this is right before, it's like the week before, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man drops, I think. So this is like, I know, like, that's on the horizon. I want to get all Spider-Man up here, man.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Moving on to catch up. All right, we got The Brutalist. This is like the divisive Best Picture nominee. That's like divisive for actual, like, genuinely cool. Like, I don't know. What do you make of it? Reasons, and not like it's a goddamn dumpster fire of a movie like Emilia Perez. But essentially, Dragon, this aims to basically be the new There Will Be Blood. It really does, as far as like the ambition of it, the character work in it. Adrian Brody plays an architect who is also a Holocaust survivor who has immigrated to America. America, he has nothing. He's kind of coming up from nothing. He has to basically start his life from the ground up again. But he's still got talent, so he's working in this furniture store of his cousin. He gets hired to basically like renovate a library for this rich guy named Harrison Van Buren, one of my favorite character names. And Dragon, let's just say the relationship between Laszlo Toth, played by Brody, and Harrison Van Buren, played by Guy Pearce, in like my favorite performance that I've ever seen Guy Pearce give. It's just electric. It is very much like it's definitely got vibes of. I think There Will Be Blood is the thing that I'm more familiar with, but I think people more accurately are comparing it to Joaquin Phoenix and Philip Seymour Hoffman in The Master. That's very much like a little bit closer to what the vibe of this is like. This is, you know about the intermission in this, right?
No.
It literally has a 15-minute intermission built into the runtime of the movie. And it's cool. It's cool, man, because it's like it kind of ends on a cliffhanger and it leaves you like, you know, it ends on this still shot that's kind of very plot relevant. It's a wedding photo. I won't tell you why it's plot relevant, but it is. It's got that little countdown timer of 15 minutes. It's such a cool experience. I'm not going to lie. The intermission element of this movie kind of elevates it for me. And it separates it into two distinct halves. I do think that the first half is definitely better than the second half. The second half takes some really big swings. I do think the director gets a little bit up his own ass about, like, this movie is literally all about being fucked by the American dream. And let's just say, Dragon, that happens a little bit too literally. Just put the pieces together on what I mean about that. The ending is a little unsatisfying. That's the big, big difference between this and There Will Be Blood. There Will Be Blood, the ending is fucking explosive and memorable and one of the biggest, like, best endings of all time to any movie. This ending, it's like, really? Like, that's the note you're going to go out on? All right. Okay. It's a little deflating. But I do think it's still a really good movie. Very towering performances, awesome cinematography. This thing was made for like $10 million and it looks like a fucking epic. So I think just as far as like just economic filmmaking goes, I think this thing's kind of a triumph. I love the score. I'm rooting for the score to win Best Score at the Oscars. I don't think Guy Pearce is going to have a chance next to Kieran Culkin. Kieran Culkin's kind of taking away all the awards for A Real Pain, but I think Guy Pearce would definitively be my vote for Best Supporting Actor this year. I don't know. It's all about power dynamics. It's all about like kind of like how American industrialists and capitalists take advantage of the little people and put them down. Gee, it's not like that's a theme that's relevant right now. You know, it's a very of its time movie. And I feel like if the Oscars want to give the award to a movie that is of its time, that does have a lot to say about the current political climate, give it to this, not Emilia Perez. Please, I'm begging you. But yeah, anyways. I don't necessarily think it's your kind of movie, Dragon, but I do think that you would really enjoy the Guy Pearce performance at the very least. So, you know, take that for what you will. All right, Saturday night. I'm interested on your opinions on this.
Yeah, so I was hyped to see this one. I was hoping to see it, you know, in time for the list, you know, the big end of the year list, but unfortunately Netflix had other plans. So yeah, this was potentially, Jason Reitman's, this is his big, this was a big chance. This was like the big, like kind of this was like the big one for him after Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters Afterlife was was kind of like the big. He's kind of taking the reins from his father's movie, and this is kind of like more so like the tribute to kind of the era that his father came from, in a sense. It's kind of the era of like the comedy legends of the '80s that were in Ghostbusters, and amongst other things, the late '70s and the '80s with the birth of SNL, the not ready for primetime players, if you will. So yeah, I was excited for this. I think it's got A-grade casting. Gabriel LaBelle, Post Fableman's very good. There's as Lorne Michaels, again, I thought was excellent casting, and that to me was like one of the big sells for it. Just like, okay, like Lorne Michaels stressing out on the first taping, as your premise. I think that sells. It's very much like a Birdman vibe to it, with like the chaos of the night of the first SNL.
Absolutely, yeah.
I did notice something. You're going to appreciate this. This is going to be very self-serving, but mind you, it's not as self-serving as the Golden Tiki, so indulge me.
I deserve that.
Okay, so I think it's funny that I think I have a new fan casting for you, and both of our fan castings are in this movie.
Oh, okay, okay.
Our self-fan castings.
Oh no! Oh
So in our
no!
own biopics. Okay, so
I felt called out by the Paul Dano thing, not because it's inaccurate, because it's incredibly accurate.
well, no. Here's the thing. I know something. Ordinarily, I would say Paul Dano, but here's the only other one's more accurate for you besides Paul Dano is someone who I saw in this movie. He's like, oh my god, that's you. You're in this movie. Cooper Hoffman, that's you.
Yeah, a little bit. I can see that. I can see that. Yeah,
that hallway scene, that's all you.
Right, right. I'm like the pessimistic one who wants to get the job done, but I've always got something negative to say about it.
Yeah, I don't know, just that
checks out.
I'd say that hallway scene felt so much like you.
Right, right, right.
On the flip side, again, of the casting that we had in our cameo, that I was saying the fact that he's in this movie too, and I think he's pretty good in this movie. Matthew Rhys, you know.
Sure, sure.
And I love Matthew Rhys. Just kind of throw a little bit. I don't know. I always felt like very much seen in that "You Only Be My Neighbor" film. I thought that I don't know, the way he played that Lloyd Vogue character. I felt like, oh man, I feel like that guy. Anyway, so self-aggrandizement aside, I'll move on from there. Yeah, I loved how Andy Kaufman and Jim Henson, oddly played by the same actor, fun choice. I love that they were kind of the heart and the running gag of the movie. I love that, very much Andy Kaufman.
You know what's stupid is that when I first watched it, I did not realize that it was fucking Gregory Hirsch in that role. Yeah. I was like, and then I looked up the IMDb. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah. So yeah, I loved how we used Andy Kaufman.
Wouldn't it have been funny if somehow that guy also got nominated for Best Supporting Actor?
That'd be perfect.
Then it would have been freaking Jeremy Strong, Kieran Culkin, and him all up for the same award.
That would have been so good.
People are already saying Brian Cox should present the award for Best Supporting Actor, and I am so for that. All right. Anyways.
Anyway, yeah, so here's the thing. So I enjoyed the movie. I feel though maybe it was a little aimless with the as far as the plotting goes.
I mean, my big problem with it, and I'm curious how you feel about it, is I just hate that we leave 30 Rock for such an extended period of time, and once we leave 30 Rock in that third act, I kind of feel like the believability of the real time format kind of goes out the window a little bit.
Well, I'm kind of with you, but not so much in the fact that he leaves there because he needed to blow off steam.
No, I understand, but we do so much in like what is it like supposed to be like 20 minutes of real time where he goes across town to Rockefeller Center, talks to oh, I'm sorry.
Remind me, is the showtime 11:30 or midnight?
I think it's 11:30.
I think it's 11:30 because we open with the quote. Everything
talks to Belushi. He has a conversation with Belushi. Then he meets the writer, and meeting the writer randomly in the bar, like you did not need that. That did not need to like that. That to me is like the biggest gimme of the whole movie for me.
I'll give it. I did love seeing Brad Garrett as the hacky comedian, though. I thought that was a lot.
That was fun. I'm never going to say no to Brad Garrett. I'm with you.
You're right, though. We don't need it.
Yeah.
I think we get the idea. He's basically hiring himself. We get it.
Right.
But here's the thing: a couple things. Like one, the whole Garrett Morris. I thought was very the actor playing Garrett Morris, who's also a Morris, by the way. I don't think there's a relation though. I think he just really loved Garrett Morris. I thought he was well performed, but I wasn't crazy about the whole like, why am I here? His whole identity crisis felt like, we have like aimless moments in the movie of like, we don't really know what to do with Garrett Morris aside from just having him be really cool. So he's just
right.
Why am I here?
I feel you on that. Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah. Anyway. So overall,
of course, we have to acknowledge Corey Michael Smith as people who have covered literally every episode of Gotham. It's really cool to see him be like definitively the standout here.
I was building to that, but yes, Corey Michael Smith as Chevy Chase was flawless, and just seeing him
Mhm.
very much as irascible as Chevy Chase. I got to tell you, it was very effective. J.K. Simmons as Milton Berle.
Yes, yes, the dicks out scene, man.
Yeah, so
That's
here,
one of J.K. Simmons' best post-Whiplash scenes, period, I
and the
think.
fact we only it has like essentially three scenes in that movie.
Uh-huh.
You know, we set up. Okay, so here's the thing: the Milton Berle use in this movie is actually a fun deep cut in SNL, and I'm sure you know about this. But essentially, Milton Berle he would do this thing where he would hang out around 30 Rock, and he would like kind of crash the shows and just just kind of hang out and
I
just
did
say
not know
hello.
about that, actually.
So it's okay. Here are a couple things. So the movie references. So again, he would do that. He would hang around. He would just kind of crash 30 Rock and just kind of like because he was the old guard and he would just be able to
Right,
do that.
right.
That's what he did here. The other thing that he absolutely they referenced there. He said like, oh, maybe one day I can host a show. Milton Berle he was one of the most infamous hosts of SNL. Not the most infamous, but he was here. You had like I think the way the tomes of history go the worst host of SNL that no one liked was Steven Seagal. He was like definitively the
Oh yeah, I
worst.
know all about that.
So
Yeah,
the other one though was Milton Berle. Milton Berle was like the saddest host of SNL, and the fact that Milton Berle, he was very, he's very had the
I
ego
think
about.
I've heard about this. Didn't essentially the idea is that he kind of wanted to bring back that kind of like old school variety show flavor.
Exactly. He tried doing that on SNL, and it kind of crashed and burned,
Mhm.
embarrassing. And there's this whole thing where at the end, I think he was prepared to do a song, and he changed the song on him, and they never invite him back because of that.
Ooh,
So that was like it was like one of those. The point being the fact that it was a meta thing of like Milton Berle joking like, "Oh, when are you gonna have me host SNL?" So that's kind of that's a reference to like, "Oh, go when he hosts." And here's the thing: while we're doing that, then brings to the third thing. That scene that we have with him and Chevy Chase is all about the whole like they're never gonna remember who you are, and it's so interesting because again that's a past. It's kind of a I'm not trying to throw this term around, but it's kind of like the whole somewhat the toxic passing of the torch things. Chevy Chase, very infamous in the backstage of SNL, like
of
very,
course.
very,
Yeah.
very gets into fights with people, he didn't treat people nicely. Very funny, mind you,
I
but
think one of the
terrible.
most electric moments in the movie is the fight between Chevy Chase and John Belushi in the
Which
train.
kind of bit of a nod to the Bill Murray fight as well. Obviously they didn't have Bill Murray at this point, so we couldn't have him there. But these kind of fights broke out, So yeah, and Chevy Chase would do that. So that's the thing, though. It's kind of Milton Berle passing the torch to Chevy Chase, in which he would become like he would be the old guard, just having the ego about him, like Milton Berle. So that's kind of that. Something really good about that scene. But again, Corey Michael Smith pitch perfectly plays Chevy Chase, and I love how he's like holding court with the executives, or Lorne Michaels like flop sweating.
Mm-hmm.
So all that was really good, and also like I did this to me. I wonder how accurate this was. The pressure from the old guard, aside from Milton Berle, with Johnny Carson. Like Johnny Carson's like really just being really mean to Lauren Michaels on the phone. Like
I did
wow,
like the threat of of
yeah,
like I don't think that's actually how it went down in real life from what I hear, but I think it made a very effective plot device of like, we can pull you at any minute and just fucking run a Carson rerun and you're gonna be done.
yeah. So I love the fact that the whole thing we get into here is that SNL was kind of a fluke in that okay, well we're kind of having contractual disputes with Johnny Carson, so SNL is kind of like it's the expected failure to kind of bolster these contract negotiations with Carson.
Uh-huh.
Like that was interesting. That I completely forgot about, but yeah, that was really kind of nice, like kind of anvil that's hanging over Lorne Michaels' head the whole movie.
Sure, sure, sure.
Anyway, so here's the thing. I really respect what Reitman's going for here. I just think there's a lack of arcs and kind of payoffs here. Now, ultimately,
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you. I feel like it builds the tension pretty well. I just don't think
yeah,
it pays a lot of stuff off particularly
it's like I'm in
well.
love with the execution, but just our payoffs, there's not really a lot there. It's just
Right.
not. There's a slight payoff. Like the main thing is okay, we gotta get the cards in order on that board. Like that's kind of the goal of the movie. We're
I
gonna get
thought we
those.
cut to yeah, I thought we cut to the cards. The thing that I thought was like a little bit too heavy-handed was like, okay, we got to scramble to lay the bricks, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. The brick thing was weird. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I will say this. This I love. I was like shocked at the Billy Crystal moment. I love the guy we had playing Billy Crystal. I thought he did a really good job. And then just the heartbreak on that Billy Crystal, where he's just like like you got to do in 2 minutes. 2 minutes, and they just hands it to the other person. Like, oh my god,
right.
That was like so heartbreaking.
Carlin was also very good.
I'm sorry, who?
George
Oh,
Carlin.
That's Matthew Rhys.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like Matthew Rhys as George Carlin was fantastic.
So yeah, I think casting, I don't think this movie could be much better. And I think as far as like the editing and execution, it's pretty great. I just think the actual screenwriting here is a little bit undercooked.
I'm with you there. I'm with you. But again, I want to highlight this. Just basically, it's like I only mention this because it's like literally on the posters and everything. I keep seeing on the old Netflix scroll and the poster for the movie is just Lorne Michaels literally is carrying all this on his shoulders, and I love that it's very much kind of a loving tribute to Lorne Michaels in the sense that he was the Kermit the Frog behind the scenes of the Muppet Show here. He was.
I almost kind of feel like Lorne Michaels, like I kind of feel like the modern day image of Kermit the Frog as the guy kind of keeping the peace backstage is kind of like born out of people like Lorne Michaels a little bit.
Well, absolutely, and I love that. Just here's the thing: Jim Henson and Lorne did have an understanding where Lorne Michaels did respect Jim Henson. Like, he calls him Mr. Henson and everything. He does genuinely respect him.
Right.
But he knows, like, they both know this isn't working, and that's the thing. He did, like, he kept him on as long as he could, and he tried making it. Like, Lorne Michaels made the effort, and I love that I just love it with both of these essentially with Greg Hirsch. He's very nice and protective of Andy Kaufman and Jim Henson in this. I just thought that was really nice.
I will say with the Kaufman thing, did it ring a little hollow to you that he would essentially just be doing the Latka voice the whole time?
Well, that was the whole thing, though. Like, no one really, Andy Kaufman was kind of assumed to be the foreign man, so that was kind of,
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, didn't Kaufman like specifically resent that he was typecast? Like, why would he?
No, this is before Taxi, Tiki.
Okay.
This is basically he did the foreign man on stage.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So he was basically like, okay.
He wasn't a star. That's what I'm saying. He was just literally it was an act that he liked, and he brought him on the show. He isn't known. You're right. He became sick of Latka. Basically, the foreign man turned into Latka, and then you could, yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah.
All right. Okay. Next up, Nickel Boys. Oh boy. So this is one of those movies that it's so style over substance, but I feel like if it was just done in a more conventional way, I think it would be super compelling. So I'm frustrated by it. Essentially, it's about a gifted black kid in the 1960s. He's on the path to get into a really good college, but then one day he gets he gets picked up by he's hitchhiking, and he gets picked up by his car breaks down, and he's hitchhiking, and he gets picked up by someone who robbed the car that he's currently driving, and because of that, the police arrest them both. This kid's record gets fucked up, and instead of going to like a good college, he essentially gets sent to like a detention school, essentially those documentaries about the the scared straight schools, one of those basically. But this is like the Jim Crow South, and he's a black kid, and so you can imagine how bad it is. The thing with this movie though is that, much like Presence, which I think does the same gimmick a lot better, the whole movie is shot from the perspective of the kid. So you very rarely see his face. It's literally like you're experiencing the events through his eyes. I will say, as someone who, the trauma that I went through, not nearly as like actively violent as some of the stuff that happens to this kid, but still childhood trauma nonetheless. Specifically through a school, and the school abusing me on some level, not physically, but definitely mentally. I was excited for that idea because I do think that it could be very powerful, but I think it ultimately just kind of kept things at a distance. I think the big thing that this movie, it got a little bit too big for its britches is the main kid meets a friend in this school, and when the friend is introduced, the camera goes back and forth between the friend's perspective and the main kid's perspective. that's when the gimmick loses me. Honestly, in the first act, I was kind of feeling the gimmick. Like, there were some really cool shots, some really interesting camera work with the perspective stuff. I was feeling it. But as soon as we introduce, like, okay, like, are we supposed to be in this kid's point of view or the friend's point of view? It just got lost in the sauce a little bit as far as the filmmaking goes for me personally. I think it's a very sad story. It's a very powerful story. There's a twist at the end that I think is pretty interesting. I will say I'm kind of curious to read the book that this was based on, because it's literally a Pulitzer Prize winning book. And I think the book probably pulls off the story a lot better than this. I respect the ambition of the filmmaking, but again, ultimately, I kind of feel like the filmmaking left me a little bit cold. I kind of feel like if we would have just stuck with the one kid's perspective the whole time, it wouldn't have gotten as confusing as it ultimately was, because there was just like, once it started cutting back and forth between the two perspectives, I was always just like, there was always that thing in the back of my mind of like, okay, like, which perspective are we in any given shot? And that's just super distracting to deal with when you're trying to focus on the story. So I really want to like this movie more than I do. I respect the heck out of it on a technical level. There's some shots specifically in the first act that are going to stick with me just on a visual level. But ultimately, I feel like just by the nature of the movie, I'm kind of at arm's length with it a little bit. So if I were to rank Best Picture nominees, it'd honestly probably be, I have not seen I'm Still Here yet. I really, really want to see that. But out of the 9 that I have seen, it would probably be number 8. And Emilia Perez would probably be the only one under it. But yeah, still good. I don't necessarily think it's Best Picture worthy. All right. Moving on, Dragon, we have Transformers 1.
Yes. So, so I watched this on a whim, and I loved it, which surprised me. So I'm not a Transformers guy at all, but Josh
I
Cooley
feel like
really.
this movie is literally a Transformers movie that was made for people who aren't into Transformers.
Absolutely. I mean, Josh Cooley was the director on this. Man did Toy Story 4, and frankly, that was like, if I had any doubts of checking, I was like, oh, Josh Cooley directed this. I'm sold. I'm watching this.
Mm-hmm.
And I love seeing the backstory, which instinctually, I found like the Transformers period is usually okay. Transformers, the background's like it's an afterthought. It's the theme song. You don't really need that. Traditionally, you instinctively you think, I don't really care about the backstory of the Transformers. I want to see them on Earth interacting with the kids and transforming the vehicles and all that stuff. But this is complete opposite, and in all the best of ways. The backstory was so freaking compelling. Seeing this idea that Optimus Prime, Megatron, which I'm sure this was like kind of like a lip service kind of thing, and maybe the deeper lore also reflected this. I think it was like a thing that was mentioned, but we never really saw proper like we did here. Is that Optimus Prime, Megatron at one point were friends. So the whole movie is about that. It's about the friends, how these friends go to be arch nemesis with each other, and it's an inspired idea to explore that for a film, and the animation was great. The again, I'm sure the diehard Transformer fans probably hated the casting of like, why didn't we bring back Peter Cullen? I get that, but it's by the same token though, because look, we need more voice actors on the big screen. I understand that, believe me, I do, but we had a really genuine performance. We had really good actors in these roles. I mean, specifically Brian Tyree Henry as Megatron, just a really great we cast people who would go on an arc, and we did that here with Chris Hemsworth and Brian Tyree Henry as Prime and Megatron. And again, you believe by the end of the movie they sound like they're iconic characters, but again they start from a more earnest, kind of like humble place, and they get there by the end of it. And I was so dialed into that journey. I was just really blown away by it. The one gripe I have is I think Josh Cooley really likes Keegan Michael Key, and maybe he let him improvise just maybe a smidge.
The one thing with Keegan Michael Key, I've said this before, that I do really like is I really like the Aaron cameo that we have.
Yeah,
that was fun. But yeah, other than that, I think I agree that Bumblebee is a little annoying in this.
But again, he's not bad. He's
No,
still
he's
likable. It's
not like
just
Jar Jar Binks level of like destroys the film or anything. But yeah,
at a certain like it borderlines on the thing of like, okay, so Starscream, we have this really cool bit where we destroy his voice box, and it does make you wonder. Technically, we should have probably did that with Bumblebee too, especially if he's going to be this chatty, and we didn't end up doing that. So
right.
it's like the one. It's like maybe they didn't want to do it
Steve
twice. Like,
Buscemi, like, I mean, he only had like the one scene, but I think as far as casting, like, he's just the perfect casting. Like, if you're gonna cast a
mm-hmm.
celebrity as Starscream, like Steve Buscemi is so on point.
That's what I'm saying. We had spot on casting for our celebs, and they were good actors too, which I think helped.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, this was very impressive to me. I hear they're going to do from what I understand, they're doing the whole mutant mayhem thing with it. In terms of
Yeah.
it ends up being it's kind of like, honestly, like we even had the Nicktoons, like Jimmy Neutron had a movie and then they got a show, so we're kind of doing that here.
The cool version of that.
I'm sorry, what?
I said Jimmy Neutron was the cool version of that because it
exactly.
The difference between this and Jimmy Neutron is Jimmy Neutron was an original IP. This is just kind of like the next version of an already like long established IP, which is why I don't think anyone really cared about the Turtles outside of the movie. And I think the same thing's going to happen here.
Yeah, so that's the that's because you have all this love and care applied to it, and they have to wonder, like, is there a chance it could transfer to the show? And I have a feeling it's probably not the case. All I know is that they do a sequel and Josh Cooley's back to direct. I'm there.
Yeah. All right. Next up we have The Last Showgirl. All right, this was also in my top 20. I don't know, man. I think this one is a little bit underrated by people. I think Pamela Anderson does a great performance here. I mean, it really is like you feel a lot of empathy for this woman. Essentially, this is a workplace drama. This is a drama about what happens when you've aged out of your your usefulness for your job. It doesn't necessarily have to be exotic dancing. It could, like, I feel like it applies to a lot of work positions. And I feel a lot of empathy for her character here, what she's going through, as far as like this show is like her life. It's like all she's known for decades, and she has such a respect for the legacy of the show and the history for the show, and to lose all that. And there's this tension with like some of the younger girls that she works with, who kind of look at her as a mother figure, even though she's very reluctant to take on that role with them. And there's also this tension of like the younger girls just don't get the the adoration of the legacy of the show like she does. Dave Bautista is in this, and it's one of his better performances. I think he's very understated and very likable and very sympathetic in this one. He's essentially the technician for the show, and he's got a really good bond with Pamela Anderson. There's also a little bit of a twist involving his character in the third act. There's also a dynamic with the not long lost, but kind of estranged daughter. We find out that essentially what happened is that Pamela Anderson, would essentially, when she would perform at this show, when she was a single mom, she would basically just leave her daughter out in the parking lot of the casino with a Game Boy in the car. And that's sort of like the childhood trauma they have to unpack there. And I think that's really compelling stuff. Jamie Lee Curtis, I mean, people give Jamie Lee Curtis shit. I feel like the Oscar win for Jamie Lee Curtis almost kind of soured people on her. It's one of those Halle Berry style Oscar wins. But honestly, man, I really think she's great here. And I think that if she would have won the Oscar here and not for Everything Everywhere All at Once, I feel like people would not be poo-pooing Jamie Lee Curtis like they are now. So I don't know. I just think this is a really solid Vegas movie. It's I think it has a lot of respect for the Vegas entertainment industry while still acknowledging the seedy, unfair elements of it. Jason Schwartzman has a fantastic one scene role as a casting agent in an audition that Pamela Anderson goes to, who's just extremely swarmy and ageist. Yeah, it's just a really, really solid movie. I like it a lot. I think it's kind of getting underrated, mostly just because of the Jamie Lee Curtis thing, which again, it's like it's a better role than Everything Everywhere, at least for her. So, give her some slack in that regard. All right, Queen Pins Dragon.
Yes, so Queen Pins. This is this is inspired by a true story. I mean, essentially, it's probably like a blurb or like an article adaptation. Like this did happen. I don't know how full on. I don't know how faithfully it was adapted, but it's based on true events. I mainly watched this. I swear to you, it's like one of those things where I always kept seeing this on Netflix and I always kept meaning to check it out. And it was like kind of like I saw like, okay, leaving soon. God, now I gotta watch it. Okay. The main reason I wanted to watch this is, I love the show Good Girls, and this at first glance it looks a little like it's kind of in the vein of Good Girls. It's kind of cut from the same cloth at first glance, and ultimately it kind of was. We have the basically we have kind of our, we have these ladies who get in over their heads in criminal enterprise of some kind. Only difference is compared to Good Girls, this is far more, mundane and harmless of an enterprise,
right.
Versus the money laundering. But yeah, so this is basically a counterfeit coupon ring, which again, this really happened. It's kind of like McMillions. It's kind of like what happened in the McDonald's McMillions thing to some degree, where essentially we had like legit coupons being made, but again, they kind of found a way to sneak, kind of get the real deal made. But so again, the big sell of this for me, and I think for you, is Paul Walter Hauser plays Ken Miller in this, and Ken Miller essentially is the loss preventions guy at a grocery store. Like it was this great introduction where it's Paul Walter Hauser playing the stickler who like will not let an expired coupon go, or like like a false coupon go. Like he won't honor it. He's just very much like no. He happens upon the big like the false coupon thing. And he calls it in and basically takes it directly to the FBI, and they laugh it off.
Oh God!
And he ends up going to essentially it's mail fraud ultimately. So it goes to like the FBI's kind of a different federal branch with the post office, and they send Vince Vaughn. Vince Vaughn is in this, and he is great. He plays the postal agent who takes his job very seriously, but again, like he's a real guy though. He's not like over the top and hammy, but he's just like he's not to be messed with. He's kind of a federal agent who's for the post office who does carry a gun, but he's not an egomaniac about it. And the fact is, he is paired with the Paul Walter Hauser character, who's very much it's the idea of a very mundane guy who's lived a sad life, who's looking to do something important. He's paired with he's kind of looking down the post office component of it. But he's kind of like they make a really great fun buddy duo here, where it's just kind of Paul Walter Hauser just like needling at this very very straightforward, very like down to earth, just kind of like postal guy who's just kind of agent who's just like, okay, look, Ken, you got to take it down a notch. He's just really good banter there. Anyway, but the heart of the movie is, so you got Kristen Bell and Kirby Hal Baptiste. They're the two friends who basically they're trying to earn they're trying to help people out with the coupons and also kind of make a profit from it. And see kind of life given, kind of treat them a little hard, and they're just kind of trying to even balance the scales a little bit by this coupon enterprise. It's a nice movie. It's very up our alley with the mundanity, Tiki. It's so up our alley. It's no Good Girls. I can't in good conscience say I would say watch this before you watch Good Girls.
I still need to check out Good Girls. It should be on my list. Yeah.
But yeah, this was delightfully mundane. Again, I remember I told you about it. Again, I know you didn't get to it in time. It's like Vince Vaughn and Paul Walter Hauser are the reason you got to watch this movie.
Right, yeah.
They are so funny.
I mean, if I feel so compelled, I can always just rent it. But
yeah, you could.
Yeah. All right. Okay, let's see. Next up on my end, we got The Worst Person in the World. This is, I believe, a French. Let me look it up just to be sure. I know I'm the worst person in the world for not knowing what language this damn movie is in.
How dare you, Tiki? Come on.
I genuinely feel it's Norwegian. So what language is Norwegian a language?
Wait, Nordic?
Nordic.
It's Nordic.
I think it's just Norwegian. Let's just go with Norwegian.
See, I'm going to that Kim Possible movie now, like Stitch in Time, where Ron Selma is moved to
Wikipedia,
Norway.
literally, it says under language Norwegian. So let's just go.
There you go. It's Norwegian.
Yeah. So this is an interesting movie. It's been on my radar for a while. It was up for Best International Feature at, I believe, the 2021 Academy Awards. It got a lot of hype back then. It's about a woman who turns 30, and when she turns 30, she kind of realizes, like, shit, my life is not together, not relatable at all. I certainly can't relate to that at all. My life is perfect. But yeah, anyways. So it's about essentially like a quarter life crisis where she's dating a guy who's like 15 years older than her. The guy is kind of like a Robert Crumb-esque figure who has like a comic book about a vulgar wombat, like very much a Fritz the Cat style character. She breaks up with the guy. She starts an affair with a younger guy, and shit goes down. I once again, I kind of feel like the big things in this movie that really impacted me kind of happened in the third act. Up until then, it takes a while for things to get going in this movie. I will say that much. It's a movie that literally has 12 chapters and an epilogue. It has a prologue, an epilogue, and 12 chapters. So 14 parts total to it. And the prologue is a sit. It's about a half hour, and I'm kind of sitting there wondering, like, okay, like, when is the plot going to kick in? Like we're just kind of sitting here watching this couple, and they're kind of arguing about having kids, and the having kids thing that's like the big tension in their relationship. The guy, because he's older, wants kids. The girl, because, she's a little bit less mature and she wants to kind of live her life a little bit more, does not want kids. That is kind of the underlying tension in their relationship and the reason they ultimately break up. Let's just say, like, later on in life, not like a major flash forward or something, but, like some years later, there's the guy that she left. There's something happens to him and she reunites with him, and it's very emotional, and that's all I'll say. I feel like this is a movie that's kind of like the vibe I got from it, the message I got from it was that, like, you can try and live as that kind of like young adult who's like free spirited and kind of tries to stick his head in the sand about stuff going on around them, but ultimately there's going to come a point in your life where tragedy is just going to kind of slap you in the face, and it's going to be like a splash of cold water, and it's going to kind of like wake you up from the apathy. And so I feel like this movie is very much a movie about kind of like moving on from the apathy of living as a young person and kind of feeling invincible and like you're untouchable, and kind of like realizing, like, yeah, the world sucks and you're going to die. Fun movie, right? But I did really enjoy it. I do think that once it gets past, like, I definitely think there's a little bit of a pacing issue with the first 20 minutes. I really wish it was cut down a little bit. I really wish we would have gotten to the actual chapters a little quicker. Once we get to the chapters, I do think it moves better, because the chapters do kind of work as like essentially like just these little vignettes of their relationship and the relationship breaking down and what she's doing. And there's some really interesting artistic choices here. There's like this whole fantasy sequence where she's like fantasizing about starting an affair with this other guy that she met at a party, and time literally stops. It's kind of almost like a La La Land kind of moment as far as like fantastical, like magical realism through the guise of a romance. It's got a very, very sad ending, very emotional ending. But there's still some decent comedy throughout. I like it a lot. I'm a little bit at arm's length with it. I think it's a tiny bit overhyped. I'll give it a solid 8 out of 10, though. I thought it was very well done. All right. Okay, Cowboy Bebop, the movie.
Yeah, so for Christmas, I got I binged it before, but I had basically got the Cowboy Bebop Blu-ray set for Christmas, and I re-binged it. So I was in a Cowboy Bebop mood, and I realized, oh yeah, there's the Cowboy Bebop movie, which is all on YouTube, and I decided to give it a watch. And yeah, so again, I this was made because people loved Cowboy Bebop so much, and at the end of the season, at the end of the finale, everyone was like clamoring for more, and basically the creator of the story is like, okay, look, I'll give them a movie that's set before the finale. We're not going to like undo what happened in the finale. We're just going to say, okay, this happened like right before the event, like kind of like the last couple episodes of the series. And here's the thing: it's not like Mask of the Phantasm in terms of like like the Cowboy Bebop, the Blue Meth
Like the
version of
blue
it.
meth. Yeah.
However, that said, it has Phantasm vibes to it because here's the thing: gotta remember, Cowboy Bebop was like the definitive anime of of exceptional quality. This was like one of the top tier like animes,
I feel like
especially
Dragon
like
Ball was like kind of like the quintessential gateway drug anime, and then Cowboy Bebop was the quintessential like once you're into anime, that's like the high art one. That's like the gold standard. Does that make sense?
yeah, sure, yeah.
Uh-huh.
So the episodes are very, they're very cinematic and noir based. It's which I think transfers here for sure. Here's the issue. Okay, the issue is that the cinematic execution aside here, because we have a cinematic runtime. We have a feature length runtime. It's not as flawless in the plot though. Like visually and in the animation and the voice, it's great. There's nothing wrong there. It's just it's basically it has like an excess of really cool set pieces. It's just the issue is that just it doesn't feel like some of the best episodes of the show in terms of like the writing and the plotting. That's the only it just feels like an episode of the show. It doesn't feel like the like Mask of the Phantasm qualities in terms of the writing. It doesn't feel like this is like a definitive standalone kind of thing. And I don't want to say not standalone is the wrong word because you can watch this without knowing what happens to Cowboy Bebop. I think
Uh-huh.
you can pretty much get the gist of it. Just you would be lacking some character introductions, but aside from that, you're pretty much okay. It's just this band of misfits, just kind of like doing their thing. So it just doesn't feel like an end all be all. Like here's a story that we needed a feature to tell, kind of a thing.
Kind of like a Serenity.
Kind of, I guess, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
right,
essentially.
right.
But again, it's a good story. It just doesn't feel like it doesn't support like the feature quality of animation that we're getting, which is great. I'll tell you this though. Let me throw this at you. Okay, so our voice cast is great. We have a couple new players just for a story here, which happens. They have guest stars and stuff. So Jennifer Hale plays Elektra, not that Elektra, different Elektra plays a character
It
named
looks
Elektra.
like.
Yep, she's 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 really cool though.
Oh God, can you imagine our Electra flirting with Ed?
Oh God.
Oh God. Anyways.
Hello, Edward. Oh,
Would you
your
like
dog's
to
so
escape
cute.
the
Look at
flesh
him
with
roll over.
me, Edward?
Well, look at the Einstein. Maybe you should lick the blood.
Oh my God. Anyways. Oh man.
Anyway, so I love her as this Electra character who has a really basically the set. I think the MVP of this movie is there's two sequences. Spike escaping, he basically infiltrates a lab to do some investigation, and that's where he meets Electra. They get into a fight, and he basically has to escape the facility. So that's really great. And then the big of course he's like Spider-Man on the brains. The train scene's always going to be the most impressive scene where we have this big monorail, suspended monorail tram car kind of thing that they have this. That's where the most impressive phantasm-esque animation happens in the whole movie, which is like, oh my god, it's like Spike Spiegel on his heels. Like, oh my god, how is he going to live through this? It's
Uh-huh.
incredible. Here's the thing that blew my mind. Darren Norris, he's unrecognizable in this role. So Darren Norris, he was in a really hilarious episode of Cowboy Bebop in the show, in which he plays like the one American character in the show. He plays like an American cowboy. And literally, when I say American cowboy, I mean he's literally riding a horse, and he's complete stupid as a box of as a box
So
of
it
hammers.
almost kind of sounds like a little bit like Curtis from Porco Rosso.
Absolutely,
Uh,
absolutely. So
uh,
basically, he's a rich layabout. He's basically like, as
yeah,
a
yeah.
hobby, he's taken up like bounty hunting, and he's the fact is like, this was in the show. I want to be clear. So in the show, we did hilarious like Darren Norris characters. He's a very Western cowboy. he mistakes Spike Spiegel for like the Mad Bomber and everything. At the point, it's not just Spike. Anyone who is literally the Mad Bomber with bombs and explosives on, clear as day, you can see is the guy, and he still thinks everyone else around. He's like a Tick villain practically. You know, he's an idiot, and it's just really funny. The point being, so that's Darren Norris just doing his usual thing we're used to with Darren Norris. Here, he plays the dramatic heavy of a bad guy. He plays Vincent. And it's like, oh my God, this is such like one of the most great dramatic performances Darren Norris has ever given that I've ever seen. This is incredible.
Sure.
And anyways, the movie's beyond cool. Just like I said, could have been tighter in the writing. You know, it's worth a watch though. And maybe I would say you still watch the show, then watch the movie. You know, there's no Julia here. Trust me, Julia is like the equivalent to Kevin Conroy saying Andrea. You know, it's like that's what I'm saying. You say Julia, like that's magic. But that's the show. Anyway, so it's really cool to watch it though. And I might be repeating this with a different anime this coming month. So we'll see what happens.
All right. Next up for me. Oh, I guess I'll just kind of speed run through these last three. Okay. All right. So A Good Year. Did you see this advertised on Max at all? Because that's how I saw it.
No.
Okay. So this is I think this is right up your alley, Dragon, as far as just like making the silly out of the mundane. It's literally a movie about competitive bird watching. And it's got a great cast, okay? It's got Jack Black, Steve Martin, and Owen Wilson. Owen Wilson is kind of like he's kind of like a more douchey version of Lightning McQueen, but just like as far as like the hot shot goes, but he's a little bit more malicious about it, but just in the form of like a celebrity bird watcher. And then Jack Black is kind of like the young up-and-comer who's kind of like bright-eyed and, has just gotten into the hobby and really wants to do well by it. Steve Martin is kind of like another seasoned professional, but he's like much more humble about it and actually treats it as just a hobby and not like a competitive thing. Steve Martin and Jack Black form a really nice friendship with each other, and Owen Wilson is very much the antagonist. They're all competing in, I guess this is a real thing in the bird watching community of like this thing called A Good Year, where essentially it's like a competition to see which professional bird watcher can mark down the most different species of birds in a year that they spot. So there's a lot of shenanigans, a lot of comedy. I mean, it's nothing groundbreaking, but I think the three leads are just so likable. They're all three of them are like really in their element. This is very much Jack Black in like his least like over the top like Tenacious D douchiness. Juxtaposition, you've seen A Good Year. Nice. Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, I liked it a lot. I like it's not great. I'd probably give it like a solid 7 out of 10. It's not anything groundbreaking, but like I said, for the just for the chemistry between the leads, I thought it was really fun. And also, Dragon, I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of getting a little into bird watching myself, which I feel like just admitting that is just admitting that I'm literally turning into an old man. But like, I don't know, man. I'm kind of to the point where when I'm going on my walks and my hikes and stuff, I will just take note, like, oh, that's a cool looking bird. I'm not like obsessive about it. I don't like mark down like, oh, that's a spotted whitetail. Oh my God. But I'm just like, no, that's a cool looking bird, dude. I admire that bird. It's like Donkey in the Boulder. It's like, that's a nice bird. That's a nice boulder. I like that boulder. But yeah, it's fun. Dragon, I think you'd really get a kick out of this. I think the cast is right up your alley. I think the mundanity of it, like, it's very much one of those things where you would not. It kind of has a little bit of a Happy Gilmore energy, right? Where golf is very much kind of like the boring sport, and Happy Gilmore kind of like, energizes it. I'm not saying this movie is as memorable as Happy Gilmore. It's not, but it's kind of got that same sort of energy, where it's turning something that could be looked at as very boring and actually making it really funny. So honestly, I think out of everything I saw this month, this is very much the one that I think would click with you the most. All right. Let's see. Next up on my docket, we have In the Mood for Love, which, Dragon, this thing is so hyped up. Like, I'm talking, there's multiple film magazines and stuff that will rank this thing in, like, the top 5, even the top 2 of the best movies of the 21st century. And I don't get it. Dragon, this is very much one where I am on the outside looking in when it comes to, like, the Letterboxd crowd and their opinion on a movie. It's a Chinese, it takes place in China, so I want to say it's Mandarin is the language. Essentially the premise is pretty simple. It's that there's a man and a woman who are neighbors. They see each other in the apartment complex a lot, just in passing. Ultimately, they kind of start to put the pieces together that both their spouses are out of the house a lot. And they put the pieces together that the spouses are actually having an affair with the other one. So the guy's wife is having an affair with the woman's husband. And the rest of the movie is kind of just like this meditation on the two of them get closer. It's this sort of situation where they do start to bond with each other over it, and there is some definite chemistry there. There's some definite sexual tension there, and the title is basically like they both do want it, but they also don't want to stoop to the same level of their spouses. And then also, obviously, with Chinese culture, it's very frowned upon to cheat, and so it's like there's just that kind of cultural tension there. In order to even spend time together platonically, they have to go around the neighbors and stuff, and the neighbors are like really big gossips. I think the film is shot beautifully. I think there's some really good performances, notably Tony Leung, the Mandarin himself, is in this, and he's really good. This is probably the movie that kind of made him a star in the international circuits, I think. Dragon, I just feel like this movie is like, it's such an arm's length for me. First of all, my God, if the worst person in the world had a slow start, this movie has a goddamn glacial start. The first half hour of this movie, Dragon, genuinely some of the slowest pacing I have ever seen in my life. This movie is like an hour and a half long, and it feels longer than The Brutalist, which is 3.5 hours long. Like, The Brutalist is literally 2 full hours longer than this movie, and it feels shorter. That's the power of good editing. And ultimately, I feel like editing is what really hurts this thing. Colby, if you're in the comments still, I would like to know if you've seen this and your opinion on it. Just throwing that out there, because it's kind of legendary in film circles, and I understand from a technical point of view, it's filled with beautiful shots. It's got like this kind of like rainy atmosphere to it. The camera work is pretty impeccable. Like, from a technical level, I kind of get it, but from the point of view of just the editing is also really wonky, just because it's one of those movies where it's like it's less scenes and more just kind of like snapshots of people's lives, and it's like the cuts between the scenes are very abrupt, which I get is probably a stylistic choice, but it really doesn't work for me. It's one of those things where, like, literally from scene to scene, I'm like trying to get into it, and then they'll cut to another scene. I'm like, well, shit, now I have to kind of like readjust. Like, I don't know, man. And this is one of the ones where it's like I've known about it for a while. And so, for some reason, I just was in the mood for international cinema. I kind of did this as a double feature with House, and I started out with House. And I thought that House was just kind of going to be like the appetizer, and then this was going to be like the big main feature, but it kind of ended up being the other way around. This was kind of an afterthought, and I'll get to what I think of House. Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm kind of perplexed by this. I'm kind of perplexed by how it's not just that people think it's a really good movie. It's that people like put it on a pedestal. It's like one of the absolute top tier like masterpieces of the century so far, and I am not there with it. I think there's good elements to it. I think Tony Leung in particular has a really good performance in it. like I said, the camera works pretty good, but the pacing is just all over the place, and there is not a lot of forward momentum. Like, even once they realize what's going on with their spouses, it's like there's not a ton that happens in the plot. It's just really just a lot of like, oh, like we obviously like each other, but we shouldn't be together, but we still want to spend time together. It's a little repetitive. I don't know. Like I said, it's like I feel like I'm usually on the side of Letterboxd, except when it comes to, like, I think a big recent exception to that was Everything Everywhere All at Once, a movie that I thought was good, but not like a masterpiece like the rest of the Letterboxd crowd thought. So, yeah. Anyways, House, 1977, the good year, 1977, the same year that Star Wars came out. This movie is utterly batshit. It's a Japanese haunted house movie, but just describing it as that just totally undersells it. This was made by a filmmaker who, before this, had only done specifically Japanese commercials. Dragon, if you have seen Japanese commercials, you will know just how batshit and surreal they can be. And this is like a feature film version of that. I don't even know how to describe this thing. It's certainly not your type of movie, but I also think it's like the type of horror movie that it's got a lot of goofy tropes to it. Essentially, it's like about 7 schoolgirls who go to spend time with the main character's aunt in the countryside of Japan. And the 7 schoolgirls are very much like 7 dwarves coded. Like, there's a one who knows martial arts who's literally just named Kung Fu. There's the sweet one who's just named Sweetie. Like, I'm not kidding you. There's one who's musically inclined and her name is Melody. There's the smart one who's called the Professor, who's kind of a take on Doc. Like, it's down the line. It's like stereotypes like that, but I think it works well because, like, for a group of that many characters, I kind of think at a certain point you kind of just have to sort of lean on the archetypes. And I feel like it almost kind of adds to the sort of like twisted fairy tale vibe that the movie gives off. There's a lot of surreal imagery in this movie, but not surreal in a way that's like off-putting, more surreal and kind of like a beautiful, sort of like really artistic, but also goofy way at the same time. It's very hard to describe this movie. It really is. And again, I don't think it's your type of movie, but I also think as far as horror goes, I think this one's more accessible than a lot of them. It doesn't really have a lot of jump scares. It doesn't really have a lot of gore. It's mostly just using atmosphere and music and kind of weird, surreal imagery to kind of get everything across. And it's very much got elements of humor. And it honestly kind of reminds me of Sam Raimi a lot. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Sam Raimi was inspired by this, because some of it feels very proto-Raimi. It was a hell of an experience. It really was. And I liked it a lot. Very memorable. That's about all I got to say about that.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So, best and worst, Dragon.
All right. Best, I think I'm going to say Transformers 1 impressed me most, and it made my top 10 from 2024. So I think it's a good recommendation. All right. Worst, I mean, look, it's just by I want to be clear. This is not like an aggressive worst. I'm just saying if I'm stacking them all up. I mean, Back in Action, because it has very been there, done that,
Sure.
It's not bad. It's entertaining. It's a comfort watch, but it's not good. But,
Yeah, for best for me, I'm kind of split a few ways. I mean, like, The Brutalist was literally my number 7 or 8 best of the year, but man, Presence stuck to landing so much. And as you know, one of my things that I didn't really care for with The Brutalist was the ending. Like, The Brutalist is so much more ambitious than Presence, but I feel like Presence is so much more digestible as a movie. I think I got to give it to Presence, man. I think Presence. I think Presence is kind of like an instant classic. Whereas I think The Brutalist is very much like bold experimental filmmaking, but I think it's going to be one of those movies that kind of divides people. Whereas I think anyone who gives Presence a chance, and one thing with Presence that I have to emphasize is that if you go in expecting Paranormal Activity, you're going to hate it. Like, it's not meant to be Paranormal Activity. It's not meant to be... It's honestly more of a family drama than anything else. It's a family drama through the lens of a ghost story. And I think those are some of the more effective ghost stories. Like, I know you haven't seen it, but Haunting of Hill House very much leans on that kind of like... The family drama in Haunting of Hill House is very much kind of like the crux of that show and the kind of the beating heart of that show. And I kind of feel the same way with Presence. Worst, it's not a bad one by any means, but One of Them Days, just, it feels the most like, again, it's not a bad movie. I would give it probably a solid 6 out of 10, you know, but it's a disposable one. I don't think I'm going to be thinking about this movie like a month from now. It's definitely not going to be anywhere on the Golden Tikis. It's not going to be anywhere near a top list, whereas I feel like Presence might have some staying power when it comes to that. So, yeah, I'm going to have to go One of Them Days as a very soft worst. Most disappointing is definitely In the Mood for Love, just as far as, like, people hyping it up and me just not getting it. So, yeah. All right. Well, big thanks to Colby, Kogias, and then Juxtaposition for joining us at the very end. Y'all are awesome. And I think we've waxed on long enough. And now it's time to put the pen down. Until next time, when we return with another fitting chapter in our...
Movie Memoirs.
Fuck you, it's January!